Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Eljay Johnsen Show. This show airs every single weekend, every Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, unless specified otherwise, over on Twitter at the Eljay Johnsen. And we usually have updates about as often as possible. Normally speaking, they happen every Tuesday. However, that lapsed this week. There are good reasons for that I will explain at a later time, but usually they're every Tuesday, along with a guest announcement. And if you have any questions over the week, head on over to my Gmail, eljayjohnsen@gmail.com. Remember, everyone, that's JOHNSEN. Okay, so there is a genuine reason that this is massively delayed, and that's only because this is going to be a massively awesome episode. So, with me once again is a set designer from LEGO you all may be familiar with. He has designed such fantastic sets from the Ninjago theme, including my favorite set of last year, and still a contender for my favorite set of this year, the NINJAGO City from the Ninjago movie. It is, of course, none other than Nick Voss. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I'm very excited for this episode because Ninjago City is just such a massively phenomenal set. It's so good.
Thanks. It's going to be, I guess, a bit of a trip down memory lane for me. So I'm looking forward to talking about it
Awesome, excellent.
and trying to piece together exactly what happened as we were making it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. But of course, before we start, let's just go ahead and just chat for a bit. How have you been? How's the weather been?
It's good. It's good. It's quite late at night here in Denmark. It's dark at about at I want to say like 5 o'clock every day during the winter. So it's been dark for about 5 hours now.
My goodness. I mean, that sounds about right. It's been doing that around here too. It starts getting dark around like 3 p.m. and it's fully dark around 5ish. But
Looking forward to the snow to start. It's not quite there yet. It's just cold and rainy.
oh wait, oh, you haven't gotten the snow yet. Okay, I finally got snow just a few days ago. Like I want to say about a week or so ago, or
Oh
whenever.
yeah. Oh, lovely. Cool.
Yeah, it's been
No,
nice. I like the snow. I don't like the ice. The ice is miserable.
I love it because growing up in New Zealand, it wasn't quite cold enough to get snow. I think where I was, it like snowed once. That was sort of almost like national news. The snow didn't touch the ground, but it was like, oh, it's snowing. So like since I've moved to Denmark, every year it's I love it. The white snow,
Yeah,
and when it's just sludge too, it's still cool.
yeah. No,
It's just
I
something I wasn't used to growing up. So
same. No, I completely agree because I grew up in California and snow there was relegated for the mountains and for Christmas movies. So I never got to see
oh,
it
yeah,
until
yep.
I moved up north, as it were. So, but yeah, like the snow, like the cooler weather. I actually even I like it getting darker earlier because like that makes sense because it gets lighter earlier as well because the time change has made it so that 6 o'clock it's fully dark. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't midnight like halfway through the night, or is that like that's like
Um,
the halfway point, isn't it?
It, I mean, it should be. Problem is the nights here are just. I think it gets light at around 8 o'clock.
Oh,
So it's mostly dark. It's
oh,
mostly dark all. It's just so far north.
okay, never mind then. That kind of bursts my theory that the night like halfway through the night is midnight and then it gets lighter sometime later. But fair enough.
No, right now it's good weather to or good atmosphere to stay indoors and just build Lego.
Well, one might argue that all weather is a good atmosphere to do that. But yeah, well, in that case, let's go ahead and get started. I'll let you go ahead and take the floor for a moment. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Obviously, we've had you here before, but go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everyone what you do and
Yes.
how you got into it.
So I guess yeah, a little bit of background about myself. Online, I go by Prince Galador, but I also used to go by Brick Thing when I was sort of more active in the online Lego building, Bionicle and Flickr sort of communities. I used to build a lot of things and share them on various websites. Um, First with Bionicle, but then I sort of transitioned into system, and from just participating in a lot of like online like collaborative events as part of Team Jigsaw, I made a Thinking with Portals Lego Ideas project. All these kind of things that sort of kept snowballing more and more into the community. And then I also on the side decided to apply for Lego using sort of the things I had been building. I didn't really think that this was something that I would actually be able to get a job for. I just thought, may as well. I don't remember why like how I found out about it in the first place, but I had been inspired by other people making portfolios, so I decided to try it out because I thought, well, this is my hobby. It would be fantastic to do as a job, but I didn't really expect to be able to get anywhere. But after a couple of applications, I ended up hearing back from Lego. I went to BritCon in 2013 at the time when I sort of received an invitation to go to a workshop in Denmark. So it was very exciting that like I guess it was fun because I had to sort of try and find some printers to print out like some documents to send back to Lego like at the time while I was trying to also enjoy a convention in America for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fun to find a scanner as well. But and so a few months after, or just a month after being at BritCon, I was then flying to Denmark, so to Europe for the first time for a sort of a 3-day workshop. From New Zealand, it's quite a long way. It's like a pretty much a 2-day trip,
Ooh.
and then it was a 3-day workshop and sort of a 2-day trip back. So it was quite a wild week that I barely remember anymore. But there were some I had a few interviews, and then I heard back from Lego later, inviting me to work on Ninjago as a model designer. So I started at the beginning of 2014 working on Ninjago,
Mm-hmm.
and I made a couple of sets for the sort of the television show, Master Wu's Dragon, Tiger Widow Island, and then a few more. But then also at the same time, so we started working on the Ninjago movie, which was in development from around the same time that I started at Lego. And so after like working on a couple more sets, the Ninjago City model was something that I sort of had the huge pleasure and honor of working on alongside a few other designers. But I was sort of the one that started working on it at the beginning, where it just sort of started as an ask of, as we were looking at different things to make from the movie, the city was being developed by the movie studio and Warner Brothers and Animal Logic. They were making a sort of larger than life version of the place that the movie would be set, and we thought it could be an interesting opportunity to see like what that would be as a set. So I started building concept models for Ninjago City way back at the sort of in October of 2014, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then was able to sort of work on it on and off over the course of the next sort of 2 years until ended up coming out as a set in 2017.
Okay. See,
So
that always seems like just to comment, that always seems like such a incredibly excellent, like it's an awesome story to hear you kind of start off doing community creations and kind of getting involved in the community, and it kind of led up into, well, obviously what's on the screen now, Ninjago movie sets to this scale.
and it very much started from from the community as well. Everything that's in the set is really inspired from having come from the community and seeing a lot of the amazing things that people make. There's a lot of things I really felt like I needed to live up to put into this model yeah, hopefully then be interesting to the community in reverse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can't speak for the community. I never can. But in my opinion, he succeeded. I mean, don't get me wrong, not much of a mockist, but I don't think that I can ever not recommend Ninjago City. It's just so chock full of experiences. It's not. Of course, it's one whole experience, but it just has so many intricacies. What's the word? It's very intricate. There are a lot of things to do, and it's an adventure going through the build. But
It is very very jam packed. And so yeah, this it was also like definitely a big team effort across multiple people within the Ninjago product team and across other like many other Lego designers sort of chipped in as well.
mhm.
Um, but then yeah, so the my main partner in crime for this was Christopher Stamp, who is an incredible model designer as well. Who he is a very very logical and pragmatic, but very talented designer. And he comes from everything from a much more product design side of things, whereas I'm sort of approaching it from uh, an A4 perspective sometimes of like trying to get as many details in as possible. He's the realist that keeps everything in check.
Mhm.
And yeah, between the two of us, it was I will I'll go into it more later, but I think it's sort of we ended up hopefully working well to find a balance in between the two.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, do you want to start on that path and kind of go
Yeah,
through
let me
the process?
take you back to the end of 2014. Um, if you would care to move the slide forwards.
Done. We have a sprawling
That will
city.
do something. So this is an early concept image that was made for the movie, which you may have seen in the Ninjago movie art book. It was made by I think Kim Taylor, but it's sort of like a key visual sort of piece to sort of set the tone of what the city could be like, and it's it's a very very early form of the city. Um, the movie had a lot of time in development, which meant that the art department was able to really continue to iterate on Ninjago City. So already it looks incredible in this shot, but then it sort of changed and grew so much. So this was sort of my starting point for trying to like, can I take the essence of this image and translate it into some kind of set?
Hmm.
It was a very open sort of question, so I was very excited to sort of dive in and try and both replicate details and come up with new things that would sort of fit into what this world could be.
Hmm. Now, for
Um,
this image specifically, this was worked between Animal Logic and someone else, or was this just Animal
so
Logic?
this was made from Animal Logic, yeah.
Okay, so they kind of came up with this whole this feel and this atmosphere, as it were.
hmm Yep, this is kind of their interpretation of Ninjago, kind of mixed with yeah, it's almost like a larger than life Bricksburg.
Hmm. Okay, I see.
But if I've got another image,
Got it.
which is also another early concept image that I was using as sort of the inspiration for what the city should be like. One of the really really exciting things about Ninjago City in the film that was sort of new from the show was the idea that this is a city that's been built sort of constantly over the ages. So you've got the old world right down the bottom, where it's sort of these old houses that are overgrown, very traditional, and they've they've just kind of kept in a very Lego way, just kept building up over the ages. So
Hmm.
nothing has been knocked down; it's just continuing to go up and up and up. So you've got this amazing transition between like the waterways and very low tech, and then as you get higher, you start to get overpasses and neon signs and all sorts of clutter and technology further up.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So
yeah,
these
you're right. You
two
can really see that in this image.
these two images together, I guess, lead into the next model.
Voila.
So this is well, it's in LDD, but I think I built this physically first. This is the first concept model for Ninjago City, which, as you can see, is completely different. Um, it's it's sort of taking elements from those two previous images and blending them together into what could be some kind of modular set.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like it's purely a display, like sketch model. It's purely as a concept. So none of this really works yet. There's no interiors to the rooms. You can kind of see in the back image, everything is just open.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of things are just kind of very loosely filled in. There's not any sense of how you can get around this model, or things to do in it, but it's just kind of an idea of like to give you an impression of like, well, we could maybe do a model this big. So yeah, we'll usually build concept models to help pitch ideas and find product opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense because this really does set the groundwork, and you can see a lot of similarities. I can even see some things that I recognize possibly even from the docs. So it looks like it's a very conceptual item here, and that makes a lot of
Yes.
sense going forward.
Yeah. So going forwards, I've got so
Ooh.
this is kind of what it looks like in when you've added a few more decorations. So taking inspiration from those concept images, we've added some stickers to dress it up, thrown in a few minifigures to really make it sort of come to life. And then this model people were quite excited by internally, so they were happy to like let for this model to kind of continue forwards. So over the next, and this was at the end of 2014, over the next few months, I would sort of work on this
Mm-hmm.
on the side, I guess, alongside working on other projects or other sets for the TV show, because there were still, I think would have been two more waves before the movie came out that we were also making sets for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can start to see like the variety of like of of life that can be going on in the city. Of sort of also like annotated out some of the thoughts of like, okay, these are interesting details that we could have. Like you want to have lots of apartments, got antique weapons, maybe a sushi bar, clothes out to dry, lots of advertisements, neon signs, more apartments. Um, there's a cat up on top of the roof for some reason.
Oh, given
There's
how
a
the
lot of
movie played out, that's concerning.
there's a lot of chaos going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's also a dragon that would later go on to be Cole's dragon for the Sky Pirates wave. It's just
Oh,
sitting up there.
huh. Interesting.
And at that point, it's a Lloyd dragon.
Yeah, I can see it's all green. I like that. I like that. Wait, is that Mata green or is that Green Lantern green?
It's Matter green.
Oh, thank
It's
goodness.
got a frog for a nose.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. The best shade of green, but I digress.
All right. Oh, yeah. So if you, I guess after this model, if you go to the next image.
Oh, this. Okay, so this is neat. I didn't get a good look at this before, but this looks miniature.
Yeah, this I think I just made for fun. And was a bit short-sighted of me because it was for the first concept model of this model that would go on to change completely. I've seen some people have made some like excellent micro versions of Ninjago City,
Hmm.
the final version, and I love them a lot. It's yeah, I never got around to making one since I guess I had already tickled that itch a long time ago, and then
Yeah.
so there's a yeah, it's perfectly possible to make a tiny version of a concept model.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. I like miniatures. I feel go often unappreciated, especially in more bionicle circles, because they're just so well crafted in their compactness.
it's also just a fun exercise to try and like represent all these different details in such a small space.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Um, Idealistically, I thought that this would help me with developing the exploring like what kind of shapes the Ninjago City could have in terms of layout, because there's lot less pieces, so it should be easier to kind of plot out where things could go to make sense. But
Hmm.
then I sort of found out that yeah, at this size, it's almost it doesn't necessarily help you out too much when you're trying to translate some of the you're putting a lot of effort into like making a approximation of a smaller shape, like a small curve at this size. Doesn't translate that well back up to the real scale again.
Hmm.
So I ended up kind of just sticking with real size,
That makes
but working a
sense.
lot in LDD for a lot of this early exploration size.
Hmm.
If we go to the next image,
Got it.
here you'll see a very technical technique that I've applied, where I've taken part of the image of part of the previous image and just dragged it over to the side to explore what it might look like if there was a bit of a different layout. So the model that we had before would probably have been maybe a $200-ish kind of size of set, basing it on sort of similar modular buildings.
Hmm.
So I was wondering, like, can this be a smaller set? Um, would that make sense? I would. So I was working on another version to have like a bit of a different layout. This is sort of the start of that. Yeah, working digitally so that you can I can easily just copy and paste things around, and I don't have to worry about gravity as I'm trying out layout and things. I
Hmm.
can just sort of have bricks just floating in area to see if this even makes sense proportionally.
Hmm. Yeah, okay, I
So to
see.
the next image.
Okay. Oh, it's broken up even more.
So you can start to see sort of making a smaller version with a different sort of corner layout. Um, Taking the original version and just pulling pieces off and just dragging it around. I've got other bits just sort of waiting to maybe drag in. I'll drag a bit off and then change it and then put it back in again. It's it's much quicker for a bigger model to sort of work digitally at this stage when I'm still sort of exploring ideas.
Hmm. Interesting, and you're right. I can kind of see the shape, like even in the last one. My favorite portion, and there's absolutely no specific reason why, but my favorite portion of Ninjago City has always been that bridge in the old world, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
I can see that bridge already
yeah.
formed,
So
and that's
that
cool.
bridge is already there. It's different. It's got more slopes. It's a bit messier. Um, it's also just sort of using all sorts of um, all sorts of pieces that don't exist in particular colors, that don't exist in dark tan.
Hmm.
The later bridge ends up sort of being refined, so it can use existing pieces to get the same effect.
Hmm. That makes sense. And so I don't know if this is actually something you can answer, but this are you just using like a pretty standard version of LDD? Like, oh, there are two of them. There's the one that keeps it so all the pieces are from sets, like you can't color them all crazy kinds of shades. And then there's the other one in which you can just use whatever color you want for whatever piece.
Oh yeah, yeah, no. So definitely, I'm using the extended mode.
Okay,
Um,
got it.
the normal mode, the palette is quite limited and doesn't really reflect what we're working with.
Mm-hmm.
So I just keep in my mind all of the different parts that I think we have that I think are being made, and I'll just try and work with that.
Okay.
But then yet, it just lets you choose all the different colors you want.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think you'll probably see a lot of the time if there's red bricks just floating around. That's sort of the default color that the parts come in as.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a case of just I haven't chosen a color for that part yet.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Okay.
But yeah, so to the next
Okay.
um, next
Ooh.
image. So this is yeah, I guess this is sort of the next step along, but it's really more of an offshoot. I guess it's an exploration of what would a smaller version of the city look like,
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of see I guess on sort of the corners that it's not quite finished, because once I got to this point, also where I was just kind of grafting a bit of details from the first one, putting onto the second one, I felt that it wasn't really working. Like you really lost the impression when you went smaller. You lost the impression of it being a city. It just started to feel like two or three buildings, and it could also easily get quite unbalanced if you're trying to have a bit of height in one building, and then it just seems like a small building just stacked up rather than being as part of a bigger city block.
Yeah.
So it wasn't getting the impression that I was hoping for, like of this one set also feeling like the whole city kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I sort of left it at this point. But then, yeah, there was some new details that I had sort of found when making this that will continue on. So there's the
Hmm.
bridge example.
Hmm.
There's a version of the boat already.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty.
Does this one float?
I don't know. It could do. We'll never know.
Yeah. Well, we know for the one that made it into the set.
But one of the things that, if you go to the next image, one of
Mhm.
the things that this model introduces is, well, I test out here is just modular pieces. So the idea that you can break the model apart into different sections, which is what all the creator expert modular buildings do.
Mhm.
But I just hadn't built it in for the previous version of the concept model because everything was purely for looks. There was no sort of functionality to it yet.
Mhm. I see. And I think obviously enough that really works out in the final model because it does give a level of obviously to a fan of the franchise who wants this as kind of a play model, then that really, really adds a whole nother layer to the experience. It also helps, I found, wonderfully if you want to build it with friends or family. Because while I didn't, I recognize that by having all the different instruction booklets and then all the different layers, it's really a group model as much as it is a
Yeah,
solo model, and that I love that about that.
that was. I'm happy we were able to do that. It needed a lot of sort of coordination along the line just to keep having that clear delineation between the different levels, so that you could right at the end do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
So going to the next image, one of the advantages of also exploring a smaller version is that with the modular sort of nature, I was able to explore a bigger version at the same time.
Hmm.
So this is the first concept model with the second concept model sort of stuck together,
Hmm.
and that sort of answered the question of like, okay, what if we go bigger as well? Um, this could be fun
Hmm.
for like trying to get that impression of a whole city block.
Interesting. And I can already see. I don't know if this kind of second model you have went into the creation of the docks at all, but I can kind of see how that slope down mimics the combination of those two sets. That's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of a
no,
neat
that's
dichotomy.
true. It kind of does.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so from that point, I guess I was also like working on just other sets for the TV show. But then on the side, wherever I got the chance, I would spend time sort of tinkering away at ideas for what the set could become. So because we sort of had an extra year of TV show that was being made, the movie was sort of put a bit on the back burner. But
Mhm.
then the movie was still well, the movie from our side was being put on the back burner. The movie was still very much being made by Animal Logic and Warner Brothers. Um,
Mhm.
so the city continued to develop quite a lot. So this kind of style of what this looked like sort of quickly became out of date compared to what the city was looking like in
Mhm.
the movie.
Okay. Huh.
So I sort of then over the next couple of months we would be just collecting explorations. So going to the next slide, for example, there's a lot of minifigures
Mhm.
that we made just sort of just threw together using sort of existing bits, exploring different character potential, to sort of, yeah, both to sort of populate these sketch models to make them feel alive, and also explore what kind of fun civilian characters we could be we could end up having.
I'm,
So there's a lot of really weird guys mixed in there.
I'm seeing a few that I recognize, and I'm seeing some that just look absolutely spectacular. Hopefully, we can kind of
Um,
come back to these at another point and take a
yes.
bit of a closer look.
So then also I sort of had like a couple of drawers. Usually these drawers are used for storing the Lego bricks that we used to build with. I had a few empty ones that I just sort of started piling full of little table scraps of both from myself and from other designers, just if they had like small ideas that could potentially like just interesting things to do with bricks. There's a whole bunch of little signage explorations. These sort of ended up with a cabinet full of just potential ideas of ingredients that could be placed into the sets of like where things made sense. So there's a few that kind of made it into the final model that you can see here, and a few that have also, yeah, not made it yet. They're just like interesting little things.
Yeah, I recognize, and for anyone watching, you're about to see a mouse on the screen. There it is. I recognize the cleaner bot, or at least a variant of him. That
Yes.
target is pretty much one for one. I definitely recall that, and the squid is just in a completely different shade. It looks like it's gone through the fryer a couple of times. So that's really interesting. So a lot of these designs, you said they're just table scraps?
Yeah, it's usually, yeah, I guess when you're building things, it's like this is just a thing that like, oh, it's an idea, but it doesn't necessarily have a place in a bigger model.
Mm-hmm.
But then so it's just tinkerings that you'd make occasionally, and but then by collecting them, I can start to like build up a palette of things to use.
Mm-hmm. And that's understandable. I can see how by having so many different options, then you're never going to be short of any items to add to the experience.
And it's just about trying to find the right place for each thing.
Yeah.
So if you step forward to the next slide,
Mm-hmm.
got even more table scraps. A couple of different roof techniques, explorations of different signage and whatnot. Um, so some of these ones didn't end up making it into Ninjago City, but then Chris worked on the city docks as well. I sort of, after finishing Ninjago City, I then moved to the Lego Movie 2, so I wasn't as involved in making the city docks. But then Chris was able to take a lot of the ideas that we had come up with for the first one that didn't have a place in the end. He was able to integrate them into the next model, which
Mm-hmm.
was really awesome.
Yeah, no, I recognize, at the very least, I recognize the, mouse time again, the one with the kind of gray paneling in the upper right hand corner. And I want to say I recognize the one right below that with the shovels as a roof.
Yeah, so the shovel roof is in the docks, and it's a lot cleaner. One of the things, so all of these early ideas as well aren't necessarily like quite. They're sometimes a bit too parts intensive or don't quite fit properly um, for building them into the set. So sometimes they need like a little bit of extra time to figure out what's a better way to build them. The spade roof down bottom here just uses so many pieces to get the spacing for those correct.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like weird things with side stud bricks down the bottom that's making sort of half plate offsets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not so fun to build as part of a bigger experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't really like we weren't able to find both how to build it cleanly or space for it in the city model.
Yeah.
But then Chris was able to figure it out for the docks.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely works. It certainly works in the docks. So that's fascinating. And these especially are very interesting looks into kind of the addition process to the city, because when I was building it, these just seemed like very natural things, and it's very easy to forget that there is an intense process and a kind of trial and error, step by
Yeah,
step.
so you'll continue to see that there's just so much iteration on different ideas of just looping around on the same thing to try
Mm-hmm.
and just find a more succinct way of doing it everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I guess my natural tendency is to build things very very detailed with lots of tiny itty bitty pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're building that putting that together, it means that there's like a lot of small bits that you have to pay attention to, and you're using a lot of pieces. Takes a lot of time to find all the parts, and it doesn't really feel like you're making much progress as you're going through the model.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of like we spent a lot of time trying to like just iterate to polish it and to make it more succinct, where you would use like bigger bricks where you didn't need to use small bricks to get the same effect, so that the like your attention and effort could be spent elsewhere in bits where it mattered more, kind of thing, to really optimize and get the most out of the each piece was doing as much as possible, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So going to the next image,
Mm-hmm.
there's even more table scraps, little separate bits, and it was also sort of to the point of like I would, if I'd have an idea for a window, I would just make that on a plate that just and have it keep it deliberately separate so that I could just have it as reference so that it could sort of look and see, does this fit, does this not fit,
Mm-hmm.
rather than sort of building it into a bigger model where it may become more specific to that shape of model. It was, yeah, they're very much all just loose ingredients to pick and choose from.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of roofs was a big focus of just, okay, how many different ways can I make a roof? Because I knew that like in the final model there'd probably be a lot of sections that needed to be roofed, but I didn't want you to be building the same thing over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you built a black roof, it could hopefully be like a different, interesting experience, I guess, as you're going through, so it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel repetitive.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, and I can definitely attest there. I don't recall a feeling of repetition during any of the builds, so that obviously obviously worked out. The question I have about this slide
Mm-hmm.
is, well, obviously the dog. I mean, the dog has a paintbrush. I'm assuming he's attempting to be a fuzzy Picasso.
Yeah,
Um,
he's. I like to think that's the same dog from Master Wu's Dragon, where he's fighting off a ghost who's stolen his bone. I quite like the small animals of Lego, so I really try and include them wherever I can, give them roles for them to really like justify why he's there. So he's a helping painted dog. Sadly, he didn't make it into the final set.
oh, okay. I'm glad that that sentence continued, because at first it's like, well, sadly he didn't make it. He lost against the ghosts trying to get the bone
But he
back.
lives on in our hearts.
And then of course the one that I was really curious about is a three. It looks like it's like a tree branch that's kind of formed a three, and then somebody stuck a bunch of advertising signs on it. If that.
Oh yeah, I've never looked at it like that. It's just this is so the other way I operate is just that this is just an excuse to use train fairing pieces, trying to find like interesting ways of using interesting pieces, kind of thing. Um,
Huh.
when I made so in the Rock Roader, the Cole's vehicle from the previous year, it's got a dark brown train fairing pieces on the side of the model, and I was trying to like use those as a detail in an unusual way for the vehicle, and then I also thought dark brown could be an interesting color as well to have this piece in, because it's only been in black and light gray I think before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thinking hopefully maybe this will be useful for rusty drains for people making things or more ornate uses.
Mm-hmm.
But then a fellow designer Leo told me that he felt that the dark brown like train fairing wasn't a very useful piece to be color changed into dark brown. That it wouldn't really be used in any other way. But I was very pleased to see that the very next year, it was also used in a different model, in a completely different fashion, as an ornamental piece on the side of the Ninjago City building.
Hmm.
So it felt like, yeah, it felt like I was vindicated, that somebody else had used it in a nice way, um, to justify this color change.
Hmm. And I can imagine that's always worth it, kind of seeing that come to fruition.
So this is just a different attempt at using this piece, that did not make it through, because it's a very convoluted way of building a sign. It didn't really fit anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that.
But yeah, so over the few months, like whenever possible, we would just sort of add to this collection, and it was very thorough. Other people also just added in, like got a lot of like nice little bridges. Neek, the designer of Voltron, helps out on many occasions, just building little, yeah, like little bitty things, and just adding them to the pool of ideas.
Hmm.
Um, on the next slide, we have a lot of explorations around a particular theme. This is just a parrot piece.
Oh,
I'm just
that's what that is.
trying to find ways that it could be used in a building.
Huh. Okay, wow.
Uh,
Goodness, it's a lot of different
no
ways to use that.
no area was left unexplored.
Wow, goodness gracious, that blends in so well. At first, I thought the lower left-hand corner one, I thought those are almost like some sort of reptilian head. But wow, no, those are actually parrots. So these didn't end up making them their way into either of the sets.
No, not really. But they were considered.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a bird pun, but I really can't. But this is interesting. It's interesting to see what kind of goes into the process, but not necessarily the end result.
So going to the next slide, we sort of jump back into LDD,
Oh, uh,
for
real quick.
just
Their
taking.
the lack of their inclusion is foul. Okay, sorry. Continue. Next slide.
Very good. Um, yeah, so this is the another version along. I lose track of version numbers. I think this would be version like 4 or 5 at this point of like different steps. We're
Mhm.
trying to start to explore a bigger layout. The one of the notable additions is like multiple floors, to get that multi-leveled feeling, of Ninjago City as it was starting to become in the film.
Mhm.
Um, Building on the previous one, also sort of tearing down. So there's a few details that are sort of starting to formulate in the bottom that I think sort of stay through the whole way. The bridge and the uh, little sewer pipe over there
Oh, I
on the
see.
bottom right. But then just, yeah, exploring volumes, getting bigger, maybe, and everything is super rough, at first, so that I don't spend too much time trying to figure out how to build an entire, like to build a particular room with all the correct colors and all the, like, to a particular proportion, only to find that maybe it should have been 8 modules wide instead of 10 modules wide.
Mhm.
So I didn't use big elements in red, just blocked out, very rough. That tree is just stacked leaf pieces, but it gives the idea, so I can sort of say on paper, like, okay, we could have a tree here.
Yeah, I
And
see.
if
So
that
rough
tree doesn't
outline.
work there, maybe I can very quickly move it to the other side of the model and see if it fits there instead.
Mhm. I see.
Um, going Going to the next slide, you can kind of see the workspace that's going on,
Oh
where
goodness.
I've taken all of these sort of table scraps that we built and then put them into the computer so that they're now, just ingredients that can kind of be just dragged and drop them in where they fit, where they do or don't fit, kind of thing.
Mhm. Interesting. So I I don't use a whole lot of LDD, but I've used it in the past, and so I just obviously outside of this process, just taking all those different designs and putting them into LDD has got to be massively time consuming. Like that has to take a substantial
It's
amount of
it's
time.
not it's not too bad because the bricks are kind of, they're once you sort of know where all the bricks are, it's easier to kind of find them, pull them in, and then you can also easily sort of copy an existing brick, and then just copy and paste it. Um,
Okay.
so that it's kind of like the bricks that you have around you in your workspace sort of become your palette as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. I understand.
Yeah, so going forwards, it's sort of
Oh.
this the city is kind of growing very haphazardly, just trying out different things. There's different few colors being thrown in, ideas are being tossed around, I guess.
Certainly
Just
starting to shape
exploring
up
to see
into
what
starting to look a lot more recognizable. Wow.
it'll kind of come and go. There's that sort of circular window in the front there, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like, this could be fun.
Yeah.
And just still trying to find what is an interesting layout, a layout that can make sense when you connect another building to it, and when it's standalone, that minifigures would be able to go all the way through. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely doesn't have any of that yet, but it's starting to think about like how could that maybe work.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the next image, you can just see a little bit more cleared up of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's just full of floating elements, and everything is sort of just made up.
Yeah, it's still very rough. The tree's looking better. Okay. Wow.
Going forwards again, there's so jumping back into the physical space again, taking a bunch of like some of these parts are just sections I've built out separately and I've just sort of piled on top of each other to see also how this looks physically, because you get a very different impression of something if it's just on a computer screen in 2D versus seeing it in real life, where you can kind of get a sense of its volume and how it looks from different angles is much easier to see in real life. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to kind of like jump between the both of them.
Mm-hmm. I see.
There's a lot of strange things that haven't really made it through, like those weird like sideways buildings where the wall is kind of angled outwards.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, I think, around this time we also were working on the new roller coaster pieces. So I was also trying to see like, okay, can I fit them into Ninjago City as well
Yeah.
as signage or some such. Unfortunately, the roller coaster ended up not being ready by the time that Ninjago City was released, so I wasn't able to use it in the model.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
But it's gone on to be used in like many unusual ways in other sets.
Mm-hmm. That's
Um, going to
reasonable.
the going to the next image, jumping back again into LTD, you can see that it's come a little bit further. There's a few staple icons that are starting to show up of like the ATM cash machine is in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the notion that maybe you could have a clothing shop further up. Bits and
Nice.
pieces. It's starting to grow and starting to get the sort of the three pillar sort of layout that it has going up through the. But then the back is still completely different. The elevator is on the opposite side. There's
Oh, wow, you're right.
different kinds of roofs here and there.
Mm-hmm. It's very sectioned in this. Huh.
Yeah, and so I think at the moment, like, well, there are also just some floating areas where I haven't figured out what could go in this space, but there's also just I think a lot of wasted space as well, where perhaps like there's not that much space in this room, um, in this building,
Mm-hmm.
because of the layout that it is right now. So I'll go backwards and forwards to try and find, is it like if I flip it to the other side, can that get me a bit more space for this room,
Yeah.
and so forth. The
Okay.
elevator at the moment kind of only gets up to the fourth-ish floor, but then there's another building on top. I don't know how you'd get there. I
Yeah.
think.
Just kind of blocks the elevator from progressing.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Going forwards, it
Hmm.
grows even more. Um, at this point, I think it has gotten bigger than the actual model, the final model. It's still just exploring like what if we make it even bigger,
Mm-hmm.
um, with more shapes on top. So there was some kind of rooftop up there now, and the front is still sort of just I'm filling in space, but I don't really know what to build with it yet. So I'm just trying things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it definitely looks the shaping is really coming into play here, especially with that kind of triangular and circular design up top that ends up becoming kind of the radio tower. And you,
Yep.
yeah, I can really see how the iconography is starting to take form.
There's early indications of it, but I don't like at this point. I don't know what I'm looking for yet. We're still just trying things to see what fits.
Mm-hmm.
And there's ingredients that I like in it that sort of stay, but then others will ultimately get refined out,
Mm-hmm.
swapped out for other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the hard things is just that often there's a detail that one of the I think you can see sort of in the middle, um, just below the orange window in the middle on the left. There's a small little mini build that's sort of two handlebars uh, placed next to each other to form a little ring with an orange dot in the middle. Um, that's it was a quite succinct detail that I had in for quite a while, but then it wasn't really doing anything. It was just a nice shape, but then I ended up not having space for it, so it had
Mm-hmm.
to be swapped out, and then
Okay.
it could hopefully be used elsewhere. But it's just so I'm just trying to trade in and out different things to
Yeah.
find what works.
Yeah. Interest. So do you often find that when going through a process like this that there are items in it. You said that it wasn't really doing anything. So like it wasn't adding to the experience, it wasn't adding to the look basically at all, and that's why it was taken out.
Sometimes it's interesting to build, but then it doesn't it doesn't have a purpose and sort of story of like why is this here. So for a lot of these rooms right now, they aren't really rooms. There's not a story to them,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just kind of just filling up space. So even though it's a nice build, if you can find something else that is also interesting to build and is a nice is yeah fills the space nicely and has a story, then that one is better. So you can just swap them in. So sometimes you have to take out something that you like to replace it with something that works better,
Okay, I see.
and then you just hopefully can just keep working through the model to try and keep improving it in all these different spots because
Mm-hmm.
there's always more detail that you and things that you can fit into that space. I was really trying to get as much as possible into this model to to also when it comes to sort of refining down the model have a lot of things to pick from, and so if you're taking out things there'll still be a lot of stuff left, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. Yeah, I
So
can
this
see the
model is kind
rationale.
of it's trending up and up and up in detail, way more than would work for a set. Where it's just I don't know what the part count on this is at the moment, but if you it's getting quite high.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely looks like it's getting larger.
Going to the next image, you can just sort of see a cleaned up version,
Mm-hmm.
and the different sides. So I'm also sort of trying to consider like what does this look like from the front, but then what are the silhouettes from the angles as well? Like do the I really like if you can sort of see through the building and through these thin gaps to get an impression that there's a lot of different things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is all still just sort of constrained to a 32 by 32 base plate, um, trying to make it feel as big as possible without overflowing those limits.
Yeah.
So for the first, for Ninjago City, because it was a corner, we were really able to exploit that fact to make it feel as big as possible, by having sort of different details sort of stick out the fronts
Mm-hmm.
to make a more dynamic silhouette when you're looking at it from that 45-degree angle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. That makes sense. I sort of
One
think.
of the
Mm.
one of the hazards of building everything, like building such a big model in LDD, is that at a certain point there's just so many bricks on screen at one time that the computer starts to have trouble handling
Oh
everything.
no.
So we're going to the next slide.
Oh gosh.
This happens sometimes.
Oh no,
I don't.
forget about Meowthra. This is the real enemy of Ninjago City. Ah, jeez.
So at this point, it was kind of good to switch back to physical building. Um, Around this time also, we have like throughout the development process, we'll have sort of check-ins with the whole, across the whole company, where we'll look at all the models that we're making and sort of see does everything make sense together. So I needed to take this out of the computer and back into reality. Yeah, going to the next slide. Before that, I was still just doing a bit of like a exploration on just what the silhouette could look like. So it's just super crude paint overs of an LDD screenshot, and then just for myself, I'm thinking like, okay, what if it can sort of fan out a little bit near the top and then make this sort of diamond shape. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so trying to like, yeah, if you see it from this angle, then you get these kind of lines going on through the model.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. I was just about to say I see and I understand, but I already know that there's going to be a counter for how many times I've said that, so I've got to find new creative ways to say those two things. So, I see der stand. Close enough.
Yes, very good. Yeah, on the next slide, this is
Oh,
sort of the
ooh.
another very cheaty version of a concept model, because half of this is just crudely painted on top of an LDD screenshot. So this was kind of, yeah, I'd been brainstorming with bricks for a while, and I was feeling like I was sort of reaching a dead end if I didn't really know where to take everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just left the bricks behind completely and just sort of went blue skies. Like if I could have a roof that has this little sort of kick, like little kick on the end there, then I could just do that, and I would just so draw it all in to quickly get a sense of like what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's just lots of strange shapes in that maybe I can build with Lego, maybe I can't. I wasn't too constrained by like wasn't gonna like tie myself too much down to it. I was just trying to find ideas that worked.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like wiring down the bottom below the middle layer. I don't think any of that really ended up being in the set, but that was sort of the feeling that I was trying to find the feeling of what we were going for.
Yeah.
This is also sort of taking a lot of inspiration from concept art from the movie at this point, of the things that they were doing, and then trying to like reflect that into which direction this model should go in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that spire in the middle. I wasn't still sure what to do with it, but I knew it needed to be something sort of big and impressive. So
Yeah.
this is kind of trying to put the Borg Tower into the into this model. One of the things that I really enjoyed for this for the movie was the way that it sort of interacts with the TV show. It's kind of it's a retelling of Ninjago, so there's a lot of like reinterpretation that you can do with the existing TV show. And so I was always looking for opportunities to try and like blend in references from the show of like what might this character be like reimagined into the movie universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then it's sort of like this, just trying to find ideas, but then not being too attached to them at the same time, because even though it's a nice idea, then maybe it doesn't work or synergize quite as well with the other things in the model.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a big and chaotic model, just about any one detail could be taken out and swapped for something else. You could really anything could come and go kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just trying to find as many ingredients as possible that kind of worked together and added up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And obviously enough, having seen the show, like looking at this picture, Borg Tower sticks out immediately to me. Although just looking at it right now, I can't imagine how we would have gone about translating that.
Yeah, how to build that. So it's kind of these sketches are sort of, they're sort of like I use them sort of as reference for myself, but they're really just inspiration. So it's, if I'll try and make something like that, but then if I find something that also works, that's easier and more straightforward to build, like that gets more out of the pieces, then I'll go in that direction. I'll steer in that direction instead.
So, that being the case, if you could just say for the record that this is just a concept, and that just because it is of the Borg Tower doesn't mean that Borg Tower was absolutely going to be in the set from the get-go. just so that all the Ninjago YouTubers don't put a video up saying Borg Tower in Ninjago City.
Confirmed. If yeah, I don't know how big the model would have been if everything that was ever considered to go in the model would have ended up there in the final thing. It would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness.
Yeah, going to the next image, there's a bit more LD things. It's getting a bit more bits and pieces kind of being placed together. Still trying to figure out what to do with the, like, I'll be doing sort of building the tower on top without knowing what the section in between will be like. A lot of this is just magically floating in air, but it's sort of if I've got inspiration for the top section, then I'll try and figure that out, and just leave the rest till later.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the next image, you can see some smaller like details of, like, again, virtual table scraps of different ideas, and you can also sort of see where even just the like building table scraps kind of inspires the ingredients that could be in the set. So at the moment, I'm thinking of maybe there'll be a TV shop, because that seems like a fun thing to have in this model. That you can, not sort of like little electronics details, but it's stemming from the fact that I could build TV in an interesting way using some curved slopes.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an ant head, using apples in black to be like ant eyes and an ant face.
Oh,
So I was thinking of, like, well, what if we have an exterminator in an exterminator shop? That could be cool.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously building the set, you can kind of see all the different shops. So presumably those shops kind of came out of a workshop mentality
So
similar to this.
yep, it's sort of like the finding details that are neat to build, but also make sense for the make sense for the story and make sense for the set kind of thing. Like, do they tie in with other sections of the model? And the ant exterminator didn't really. There wasn't really a space for him, so
Yeah.
it came and it went, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The next image is so this is going back to reality again. For this kind of company-wide check-in, needed something physical to show. So with a lot of help from Neek, I think, chipping in, we sort of took what existed digitally and sort of merged it with a lot of rough filling in of shapes. There's a lot of gray in this model that's just blocked in, where physically there needs to be something holding this model together. And then we just covered it with all sorts of decorations to really give it a lived-in kind of feel, where there's all sorts of stuff going on. We sort of raided the sticker drawer of all the different sets that we had at the time, and just picked out as many different, like, little icons and details as possible, and just absolutely plastered this model with things.
I can see that middle window. It's just covered in stickers.
Covered with stickers. So that's not to say that at one point that would have actually been in the set. It's more so that, like, this is just trying to give an impression, again, to sort of, while this model is still under development, it's like, this is the tone of voice, this is what we're aiming for in the set, but then this is not the set. We still don't know what that is yet.
Yeah, and even still, with that being the case, I can see a lot of it. Like, every single slide we go through, it's coming more into focus. The central window, the kind of speaker-looking thing in the central pillar. Obviously, the bridge is intact. The tree, and most notably right now, the squid. The squid's kind of made its emergence
Yep.
in that bright blue.
Yeah, so the squid, by this point, I figured out a color scheme for him that works with sort of parts that we have. Um, so now the squid is pretty much game set. He doesn't, just because I love him so much, he doesn't make sense at the moment. He's just slapped on there as a sign. Um, but he'll move around, and then yeah, ended up with a spot that he could live where there's a space on the model that needs a detail, and it's near a food restaurant, so the squid goes in.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the crab is just floating up on the building as well. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a home yet, but that's also a build that's like, okay, this is a cool mini build. Let's try and find a place for it. Let's find
Yeah.
a home somewhere within this model.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few other like the rooftop dining of some kind. That's been a kind of a hold through for the whole model. That was sort of in the very beginning. We felt like it was a very good way to use the sort of top space off the building to make it you get any like an extra floor of detail without having to then have a roof that doesn't do much on top.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of like will flip from side to side in the model as it develops, but it sort of stays there in some form.
Yeah.
You can see a little on top. One of the minifigures has a cone on his head for some reason, and then a traffic cone, and then
Yeah.
another one. There's a shark army guy who's just got his helmet off and he's just rethinking his life.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Man, how'd I get up here? First I was in college trying to get my art degree, and now I'm in a shark costume on the top of this building. What have I done?
Where did everything change?
And Lego makes traffic cones? I like there's
Oh, it's a one by one plate with a one by one cone on top.
Oh, well, I'm stupid. Never mind. That makes sense.
You can yeah, it's Lego algae. You can
You can make
you can
traffic
build your
cones.
traffic cones. Yep.
This is why
Going to the next image, you can kind of see like some close-ups of this model of like they're trying to like find like the slice of life kind of feeling because this set I really wanted to be all about the citizens of Ninjago City more so than like the other sets are sort of focusing on the ninja and the heroes and all the action that goes on in the film. I wanted this to really capture a day in the life of Ninjago City. So to do that, we needed to figure out, well, what is that? Um, what could these characters be? So you've got a few people that you can see that some that carried through, some that didn't. There's sweeps sort of in the background, holding some flowers. There's a rich guy with a lot of money. He's just bought himself a golden fez. There's a taxi that's crashed down the bottom in the streets. I think a police officer is inspecting to see what happened.
Mhm. Oh my goodness, yeah. No, I can definitely see where a lot of this did carry over. Maybe not the taxi that's crashed, but a lot of the citizenry just kind of walking around because that is a I would say even understated aspect, an important one, obviously one that's kind of integral to the look of the model as it stands finally is how it does feel very lived in once you kind of place your minifigures wherever you want them to be because they're all doing something.
Yeah, no, the minifigures are super important, and then yeah, like would occasionally have to like I guess would have to sense check to just try it out to see like what it looks like with all the minifigures on again, because often we'll be developing it sort of without the figures, and then you may want to like fill in a space, add details here. This spot looks a bit empty. Let's try and add some more things in. But then you'll find that oh, actually there's not space to put a minifigure anymore, or it looks empty now, but when you put minifigures into it, then it actually feels quite properly like lived in.
Mm-hmm.
So the minifigures are the details as well. So
Mm-hmm.
at this point, this model is also really way over detailed as well. There's just thousands of stickers and thousands of like bits and bobs everywhere. Going to the next image, there's even more things going on. Yeah, there's the shark guy. There's the overlord in a taxi piloted by a robot. That was the taxi was made by Neek, and I put the overlord in there. That doesn't mean that the overlord was going to be in the set.
Wait,
This is not canon.
okay, yeah, no, I forgot. I
Not
looked back at
confirmed.
the two of them. It's like, wait a second, wasn't he? But no, he was in the docks. Here, well, Garmadon was in the docks, but Overlord was night. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, at many points we also just, I think, trying to just play with the model to try and stumble across stories just through having fun.
Yeah.
There's the cash machine. It's just overloaded with cash. Um, the cash machine doesn't do anything at the moment. But this is kind of this was the ambition for the cash machine. I feel like I'd really love to have just way too much money coming out, and then you can just have cones around it. And so a lot of the work for the cash machine actually went into exploring a function to make it work, because within the context of the model, I think it was nice to have a form of currency, but then an arcade machine could have also worked quite well. In Ninjago City, there's lots of arcade machines everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
An arcade machine is, on paper, more fun than a ATM machine.
Yeah.
So part of the challenge to myself, sneak out, we iterated on this a lot, was to try and find a function that made this cash machine really worthwhile. So if it can dispense multiple notes over and over, that would really like justify it being there in that little bit of space that it has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can see that, and I I think that it absolutely works in Ninjago City. I also think it's the function that I ended up. Maybe it's just because I'm clumsy with sets. It's the one I always had a lot of difficulty maneuvering, but that's probably also because I'm,
Yeah,
my
loading all the cash
yeah,
into the machine every time. It's a lot of money to deal with.
yeah. But obviously, it does work. Like I can definitely vouch for its effectiveness. Isn't the right word, but
I don't
it's
remember
functional.
exactly how many notes you get. I think it's about 15. It's the most it's the most most money that you get in any sort of regular retail Lego set. It's
Really?
more than the Brick Bank, which I'm very happy about.
Wow. I
That you,
that's a,
if you're looking at $100 bills, it's great value.
that's a fun fact. So, so you spend the money on the set, but don't worry, you can make most of it back. And if
Oh,
you just
you make it back a lot with all those Lego
yeah,
notes.
it's like the gems. If you can find one in the Lego set, you're rich. But now you're
Yes.
super rich if you can get this. That's
Well, I still
awesome.
think gems are probably worth more, especially those diamonds.
Yeah, that's fair. That is true.
Going to the next slide, there's just sort of the whole city over again. This was also sort of a good point to be like reflecting on the model of where it was at the moment. At this point, it kind of has better separation of levels compared to interesting one or the previous sketch models. There's a lot more like different details going on. The scale we felt was very impressive as well. It gave a good impact of, okay, this is a whole city going on.
Hmm.
Um, but then at the same time, now I think that there's too much clutter. There's too many details. The signs need to be streamlined down. Like you'll have like on the side, there's all those like tiny like bits and pieces that just you can't really read it as a whole thing. It's just you don't really know where to look. The silhouette as a whole is actually kind of tilted to the right. Um, it's sort of even though the tree on the left is sort of helping a bit, generally the building feels like it's falling over because of the sort of the stepping that's happening.
I see that.
So
Yeah.
that was something that we wanted to fix. Um, Even the individual buildings don't really stand out that much from each other. Um, Also just because of the sheer amount of clutter sort of blending everything together.
Hmm.
Then structurally, in this physical one, we needed a lot more support for the elevator for the second level of the street level is sort of it's too thin at the moment, so you can't really push down on it hard.
Hmm.
Um, you also wanted some more balconies as well. There's not really that many spots for people to sort of be looking out from. This is actually there's a only sort of 2 or 3 bits that they
Hmm.
can be standing.
Yeah, like even on the kind of eatery up top, it's still a bit difficult to look past the giant, almost pyramid-shaped design and a lot of the architecture surrounding it.
Yep. So it's still kind of a it's kind of a jumble. So there's sort of a long way for it to go before it's really working.
Hmm.
So at this point, I kind of after this stage, it sort of starts. I think like it was really very much a sketch model still of like this is a concept, but it's not really working as a set, as a play set yet.
Hmm.
And around this time, Chris also joined on to help building the model as well. So while I was sort of looking at the details of especially the upper 2 levels, Chris started to really refine the lower level and sort of would work our way upwards throughout the model to refine it down to sort of optimize everything so that it you got the same level of detail and experience, but with less parts, so that it would build much cleaner. You could spend those small itty bitty parts on the details that really mattered rather than on building up a wall.
Hmm.
So he was really driving coming from the like cleaning up everything kind of side and making it actually make sense. Whereas I was trying to like just cram as many things in as possible.
Hmm.
Going to the next, yeah. So the next slide, you've just got some sketches, really
Oh,
messy
whoopsie
stuff.
daisy. Hang on. There we go. Okay.
Of thinking of like, okay, how can we clean up the silhouette a little bit, but still just, yeah, getting and also trying to get ideas of like what could all these things be? Because at the moment they're rooms, there's space there, but it doesn't have a purpose yet, and it needs that for the model to make sense as a whole.
So,
Also, just like trying to think about like how it splits up into bags, how you might build this model.
hmm this is where you say you went back to the drawing board, as it were.
Yep, back to the notepad.
No fact.
Because yeah, it's just like the tiny sketches, even though they're terrible quality, it helps me in my head think about trying to make sense of everything
Hmm.
quicker than trying to do it with such a large model.
Yeah, this seems like another good way of kind of shaping it and putting it into your kind of perspective, a new
Yeah,
perspective. Look, oh
so
my
it's kind of I
gosh.
know what I'm aiming for
Well, literally the moral of the film: look at things from a different point of view. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, stepping forwards, there's even more sketches. Also, at this point, I was considering could we have the sort of Ninjago news center in the film. There's sort of a radio broadcasting company that's quite prominent. So could this be a radio spire in the middle? Is there some kind of interesting build that I can do for that? The spire was a big question still. I don't really know what it could be that kind of makes sense. I was able to take a lot of inspiration from the film though. There's they had a lot of different towers in the film that they had made, and I could sort of pick and choose between the different versions to try and find a shape that works well for this set that's also reminiscent of what you see in the movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there's still just a lot of odd things. Starting to figure out that maybe this fish theme or this food theme going through the different model could work quite well if you have fish shops in the base of the model going up to selling and cooking food in the street level and then the luxury dining experience on the top.
Hmm.
And at this point, we're also really thinking about that strong separation between the 3 different levels of the old world, the street, sort of modern world, and then the almost futuristic high rises on top.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting that's now coming into kind of fruition, which from the standpoint of someone who sees a set for the first time and builds, it's like, oh wow, of course. Well, why wouldn't it be like this? But
Mhm.
already it's this far into the process, and would you be able to say how far along, like what year this sketch is from, around what time we are, or you unable to
Um,
specify?
I don't know for certain. I have to go back and check file dates. It's probably halfway into 2015, I think, ish.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
To know. So this the development went from the end of 2014 up until sort of mid 2016, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's about a year before it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay.
it like after we were finished making the model, then there's a lot of other work that needs to be done before the model is ready. Like all the building instructions need to be made, the packaging, uh, so it looks good on the box and everything. It needs to be produced by factories and then shipped around the world. So there's sort of a long sort of lead time that we're working really like we're working on a lot. Yeah, a year before it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, it was still sort of it was we're starting to get closer to our deadline, so we had to we're transitioning from a wide open exploration that you've sort of seen up until this point into sort of nailing down and boiling it down into the final model.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very grueling process for me to try and like pull away from this like possibilities are endless. It could be anything to try and like okay commit to all these different things and see
Yeah.
what it is. So going to the next slide, I was also very fortunate. It was fantastic to have the sketching prowess and help of Matt Bedecker of Bionicle concept art fame. So he helped out doing concept images for the city set as well to sort of give some clear like inspiration of like where we should be going, how things could be like more clean and such.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of this artwork in the instruction book as well for the set, but then he did a lot of just a lot of amazing sketches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing how quickly he can make all this stuff.
Yeah. This looks like. If you hadn't told me it was Matt Bedecker, I don't know if I would have really made that connection right away because this looks like such a different style. Like it's a different style. It's more sketchy than what I'm familiar with, which is really cool. But also, give me a moment. I need to go ahead and make a video. Hey everyone, it's LJ523 here with a new Bionicle news video. As we can see here, Bionicle is directly responsible for Ninjago's success. Confirmed, 100%, and post. Okay, sorry.
Very good, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, on with the show. There's more amazing sketches from Matt as well, immortalizing the squid and the crab.
And in the okay, now I gotta ask this shape, this one in the center here. I figured it was kind of some sort of a frisbee-esque deal, like it was supposed to be advertising, like competitive.
If you're gonna ask what this thing is, I don't know. I just really like it because you get 3 boomerangs, and it's a fun little detail.
Okay, you know what? Fair enough. In that case, I'm just going to assume that it is a advertisement for competitive boomerang target shooting, where the point of it is to successfully hit a target miles, or not miles, but meters away with a boomerang and then successfully have it returned to you. So that's going to be my headcanon for this from now on.
That's absolutely what it is from the beginning. It's a sports shop kind of style. It's definitely
Fantastic. That's canon.
On the back of the model, there is one of my favorite details. I think it was Jang in his review of the city. There's this pipe that sort of leads down from the construction site where you've got the bonsai tree coming out the side.
Oh, yeah.
There's this pipe that leads around, and then there's a little green stalk that's sticking out the bottom. And Jang said like, "Oh, this is really cool because it's this like the roots have grown all the way through the pipe because it connects, and then it's coming out the bottom as like it's a really nice detail." And I'm just thinking, I'm like, yes, that is a very nice detail. That's exactly what I was thinking it was going to be.
Oh my god! I remember watching that part of the review as well, and then building it and going, "Wow, Jag was right. That is a really nice detail."
and I'm just like, I just put the leaf in there because I wanted to just like put something in the pipe. Which is like, oh, a bit of green there, why not? Um, I didn't really think how it would make sense. And if I had thought of it being a root, I might have put it in as like a brown like whip element instead. But
Yeah.
that wouldn't like I don't think that would have looked as nice. So it's like ended up yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very
Oh.
thankful that he figured out the logic
I
between what I was doing.
I never thought I would say this, but Jang, please don't watch this. Oh wow.
So that's it's definitely a root coming out the bottom now. That was the
Excellent.
plan all along.
That's ingenious, honestly. I mean, kudos to Jang for noticing
Figuring
that
that out.
and
Yeah.
having the space of mind to realize that's what it was. That to understand your genius. There we go. Oh jeez.
So going to the um, next slide, there's again just from every like big milestone that we get to when we've sort of made a whole model. The thing that I really love the most is to then throw the entire model away and just like start from scratch again.
Well, that
Um,
makes sense.
building it up again from a fresh, clean area with the new perspective of what I'm kind of aiming for.
A different point of view.
So different point of view. So I'm not like bogged down by the proportions and everything that I had chosen the previous time. Trying to take another attempt at it to like make it make even more sense.
Hmm.
So here we go back to basics again. LDD model with some very crude paint overs, so crude that I think I stopped halfway through. Um, and then later on, getting to just like this point, I tried to build everything in gray so I could really focus on form without getting sort of too caught up in the color.
Hmm.
Also, it's just quicker to not have to apply the color.
Yeah.
Um, and so here you can kind of see a few of the details that are sort of really coming together now. I think the layout is sort of mostly there. And many of the details that sort of end up in the final model are sort of in here. They're just in different positions.
Hmm.
It's like the signage on the middle level has sort of been figured out.
Yeah, I can see that. Huh.
So jumping to the next slide, we then build that LDD model physically with a little bit of color, but still mostly grayscale. So here's kind of the like rough outline off the set. And this also has some more exploration into making the bases work a little bit better. Everything is sort of detaches in modules, and then so hopefully the ambition was that we could then, because everything was in modules, you could also just like we could work on the different sections separately. So Chris could be looking at the bottom section while I was exploring the middle section, and then we could bring our stuff back together and it would connect together again.
Hmm.
As we found out that we kind of needed to adjust the position of everything, so it didn't work too well, but it was good to be able to work on different sections separately at least. It just didn't come together into a piece that stuck together well.
Yeah.
At this point, you can sort of see the water down the bottom is actually transparent green still. For the longest time, I kept the water in transparent green because coming from the fan community, there's a lot of incredible sort of post-apocalyptic cyberpunk dioramas and collaborative layouts that people have made.
Hmm.
A few in particular, like one made by Brolog a couple of years ago, that were to me a huge inspiration for what the city could be. So kind of combining both what's happening in the Ninjago movie, and then also what people have done in the community. So I was really hoping to be able to. So one of the techniques that you'll use is having just lots and lots of one by one transparent green tiles just across the whole model, to make this like multi-layered water effect where you can kind of see through the water to different things and different colors underneath that make it
Yeah.
seem this really nice murky water. I really wanted to be able to introduce the 1x2 tile, or hopefully a 2x2 tile in transparent green, so that it'd be less tedious for people building that water to have to like use all the one by ones. Maybe there's a few bigger bits that they can use.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I was trying to have this transparent green water, and then explain to people like both that, but then also like how it would make sense in the city because it's kind of like this overgrown water effect. But then ultimately, it just felt a little bit too overgrown and a bit too dark and toxic for what made sense
Yeah.
for the happier kind of uplifting. Because Ninjago isn't so much cyberpunk; it's like a happy punk or something.
Hmm.
Um, where everything is just a lot brighter. So we ended up switching to regular transparent blue, which makes a lot more sense for water.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I can
So it
definitely see how,
reads a lot more.
and obviously you guys kind of worked around that to a certain extent because it still feels very, very grown, I suppose, because you have the different shades of green under the blue, and that
Yep.
really, really lends itself to the feeling you were gunning for.
Yeah, one of the nice things about the transparent green is that because it's such a like a dark green color, you've actually got a lot more flexibility for what color pieces you can put underneath, and then everything will still look green, just different shades of green. Even if you're putting like yellow underneath, it will still look like a light green when there's a transparent green tile on top. With transparent blue, you have to be a bit more subdued with the tones because the tones show through the water much better.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense from a non-set designer perspective as well, of course. So okay.
Yeah, so in this version of the model, you can also just still see the table scrap philosophy at play, where there's a few things that I built a while ago that now there was a spot that could fit them in, so they've just been thrown in. They've been thrown in there for this version of the model, like that weird samurai armor thing in the top.
Hmm.
And the pufferfish at this point is well formed, and just hovering around hoping for a home.
Hmm.
And yeah, the crab kitchen is also figured out. Okay, I can have the crab here. This will make a good sign. Also, a nice sort of central symmetrical shape.
Yeah.
So it's kind of working from a design side and also from a play side. It makes sense in the story the story of this uh, universe. Um, so then it was sort of then like would explore further for this building. Can this be a crab shop? Like what could be inside? Some kind of restaurant. And Neek helped out with the amazing crab cooking function. Um, so my brief essentially was to him was just to try and find a cool way of cooking a crab, so that you can have a so that this crab shop is more fun and makes sense in this model.
Hmm.
And we explored a lot of different versions of like different kind of cooking functions. One where I think you'd actually dispense you'd have the cooked version of the crab sort of hidden in the oven, and then you'd when you put the uncooked crab in. No, sorry, you'd have yeah. When you put the uncooked crab in, it would cause the cooked crab to sort of drop into the spot that the uncooked crab was, and the uncooked crab will get dropped out the back of the building to fall back into the water.
Oh my gosh.
And there was like a lot of different sized models of like different ways that we could potentially have some kind of crab cooking function. And yeah, in the end, we were able to figure out this very compact little magic trick. Um, and so that then, where that needed to be in the shop, then sort of dictated the layout of the rest of the shop. So for how people could sit in there, and then you ended up having sort of a complete experience, I guess, of visually this looks cool, and then it makes sense in the story of the model, and then also there's some fun play function inside that complements itself to what this shop's about.
Hmm.
The other detail that is that's quite prominent for the crab shop is the boiling liquid on the two different sides, with the transparent one by one just dropped into the model. or dropped into the tall, transparent bricks to make bubbles. And that originally came from another Ninjago designer, Michael, who was working on the Dragon Forge, and he figured out that you could have this nice bubble effect, and was trying to integrate that to have like two different streams of fire and water being mixed together for the Dragon Forge.
Hmm.
He ended up not being able to fit it into the final model. There were other things that sort of worked better when you were sort of iterating and cleaning it up. But we sort of kept that idea and put it into the box of ingredients, and then I was able to find a spot where it could fit into the set because it was a very interesting technique.
Hmm. Yeah, I
I was happy
remember
to
that. It's
find the
all.
right context for it.
It surprisingly was also really easy to construct because I was looking at that and I was afraid, okay, is this going to take a an intricate balancing act or what's going to happen here? But it's really
Hmm.
straightforward and it was a excellent way of kind of going about conveying that.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when we have we'll have meetings, a model quality meeting where we will build through this model with building instructions developers and model quality people who will sort of representatives to sort of safeguard to make sure that all Lego sets live up to a certain level of quality, that everything sort of makes sense as you're building it and feels correct. And I was pleasantly surprised that when I suggested in the steps that you take this brick, you turn it upside down, and you drop a bunch of smaller bricks into it. Um, Everybody was okay with it, and that it worked out okay because they sort of just naturally fall into spots, and then you can cap it off. Luckily, with the new 2x2 plate that we developed for the movie, the 2x2 plate with two studs on it works really well for capping it off because there's only just one stud in that. Two studs would have gotten in the way. One stud fits, and then means that you can turn it upside down again without all the little bits spilling everywhere.
Hmm. That's incredible.
Um, so that was very fortunate that we had that piece at the right time.
Seriously. Wow. That's really fun how that all works out. That's awesome.
Going forward to the next image. Um, so at this point, we're really starting to think about, okay, what is the set? And this was sort of, I guess, the greenest pastures. This is the dream model of all the kind of details that we want to have in here. Even though it was still sort of in development near the top, the bottom section was getting quite refined. Um, so you can kind of see on the right here, like the bottom floor was looking like at this point, where it's pretty much, it looks like it's finished, but there's when you look closely, there's a lot of little details that are different. One of the main things is just that there's so many more tiny, like bitty one by one plates and such. If
Hmm.
you look at the central building with the white round window, down the bottom there's two bricks, and I think there's a one by two plate followed by a plate and a tile, and then another plate,
Oh
all
wow.
just to give an impression of a cracked wall, um, which is nice and all. But as you're building the set, um, there's so many other things going on that if you were to have that level of detail, um, it would just sort of really slow down your building experience.
Hmm.
Um, so we really wanted to like put the focus on. So when you're building the interior detail, there's a bit of like certain bits that you're putting together. But when you're building just the wall there, a 1x4 brick and a brick would work just as well
Hmm.
for conveying the idea that it's a bit run down.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done from this point of just of looping through the model to sort of clean it up and sort of make it a more polished experience.
Hmm.
So also at this time, I've made a sort of overview of potentially what the minifigures could be like. One of the awesome things about this model is because it's sort of focusing on the side characters. I was able to sort of pitch what these characters could be, because also they need to sort of be integrated with the model so that if you've got the crab shop, you should have a chef as well.
Yeah.
finding the right spots. But then because everything was changing so much, the different roles were changing. I was able to sort of come up with them myself and then change them as needed. So here you can see a lot more characters than are in the final set. There's about like 25 of them. There's essentially more than a full minifigure collectible series worth of just characters
Oof.
for this one set.
Wow.
And this was just so that like I knew that there would be enough characters that when you had the model as a whole, it wouldn't feel empty.
Yeah.
And there's just so many things that need to be done in terms of roles, different shops, different places for people to live, that the figures would just add up very quickly. So this
Mhm.
is sort of the wish list of all the different characters that could have been in the set at one point. Going to the next slide, one of the super exciting things that we were able to do for this set was make a new element. Um, so this element was made by element designer Essa, but then it sort of came from a pitch from myself and Chris of just this is a piece that we'd been wanting for a long time for Ninjago, but it just hadn't had the opportunity to make. But then Ninjago City seemed like the perfect time where if we were to make it, we'd be able to use it in so many different places across the board that we'd be able to sort of really get a good worth out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So this sort of shows both like just an early sketch of like, okay, this is the piece that I like it to look like this, and then what was sort of made and developed, like the considerations that we were sort of looking into. Essa, the part designer, had this amazing suggestion of actually putting a bar in the middle of this piece. The version that we had sketched up was just purely aesthetic, but then he suggested if we put this bar in, then you can start to do a lot more things with it, while still having the look. You can see you can clip to it and have bricks built through the piece. So attach lanterns. You could have minifigures climbing up the side of it. It adds a lot more play opportunities to it.
That sounds like exactly the suggestion I would expect to hear from someone whose job it is to design pieces. Like that makes a lot of sense because obviously there is the aesthetic properties of an item and then there's the functionality, and obviously this is a great piece. Like it gets both across really really well. Although I didn't realize, can you still put bricks through it? Can you build through it like that?
Yep. So it's like that square was specifically made to be slightly bigger than a 1x1, so that there's space to sort of clear things through.
That's amazing. I never knew that. That's awesome. Goodness, that is a great piece.
So then I was excited to be able to then immediately. Often you'll make an element and then think of potential ways that it could be used in the future, and design for that. But then often it would just be used for sort of one use. I was lucky for the set because of the size of it that I could include this piece many times and try and show different ways that you can use it across the model.
Mhm.
So there's a place in Lloyd's bedroom, at the top where the piece is entirely hidden inside the wall, but it's used to clip on little details into shelves that he's got.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Goodness, that is clever.
So on the next slide, this is just a big overview of
Oh
the
man,
characters
the
at
denizens.
the denizens of the city at a very conceptual level. They all have great names like Sleepy Fisherman, Crazy Goat Herder, Traditional Kid, uh, Patricia, which is named after our project manager for Ninjago. She didn't end up being called Patricia in this set, but there was another set in the Ninjago movie line that was sort of a Easter egg towards her.
Well, that's awesome.
There's Jesper, the crab salesman. I wanted a little bit of continuity between the Temple of Air Jitsu, where there's also the Jesper with the same face and like hair color. So just maybe he's a crab salesman in this universe.
That's amazing.
There's a Building Brother 1 and Building Brother 2. There's a crab chef. There's a rich kid, a rich guy, rich girl, Rufus McAllister from the TV show, so Mother Doomsday,
Ah,
and he seemed
yes.
like a great opportunity to combine a lot of things together. Where he made sense to be wearing, well, a Galador T-shirt, and then also a great like a reference to the TV show, and then just an interesting shop as well for this model, where there's a good justification to include a lot of different details and fun nods to things.
I'm I so I believe that someone has mentioned publicly that the interconnection between the show of Ninjago and the set design is reasonably close.
Hmm.
And it's kind of fun to see a character from the show, Mother's Doomsday, become a part of the Ninjago City set as, basically a direct reference to the character, but with a slightly different design. And then have that character from the set that was a reference to the TV show then show up again in the TV show as a reference to the set. I That to me is
It's
just so much fun to see that progression.
it's a lot to think about. During like the development of the movie, we were also trying to like make sense of like, okay, how does this fit in with the TV show? And what we really wanted to like, and I think there's bits in some of the sets that kind of almost hint at it. Have the idea that the Ninjago movie is a movie that the ninjas in the TV show could potentially go and watch. Like somebody made a movie based on their life, um,
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of a retelling, so they could go and watch the Ninjago movie. And then from that point, we really wanted the Ninjago TV show to be canon in the Ninjago movie.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. So you have
so
just this
that
infinite loop of canonicity and
yeah, there's just like some
references.
kind of like circular loop of the worlds that exist within each other.
Oh my goodness. That's gonna send Ninjago YouTube into a spin. That's amazing. That's crazy.
Um, so the so there's also another casual Cole, um, with the idea of him having a different costume to what he had before,
Mhm.
what he has in the collectible minifigures line, and that he didn't end up in this set, but then he did end up showing up in the docks instead.
Mhm. Yeah, and
There's a
it's such a good design too. I personally prefer it to collectible minifigure series Cole, but that's just because he's got a cool jacket. It's excellent.
I think it's great that he gets a bunch of different awesome music outfits.
Yeah.
There's the taxi driver who is a sort of a reinterpretation of the postman.
Hmm.
Maybe in the movie he like in the TV show he gets letters from place to place. Maybe in the movie he gets people from place to place.
Oh, that's clever.
So it was also I had like there's some builds of taxis that I really wanted to have in the set, and also have as a reason explanation for how you can get from level to level. Um, One of the challenges of the set layout is that the elevator is sort of on a disconnected platform from the rest of the ground level. So in order to get there, to get up to the next floor, you sort of have to take a boat across. But initially, you could also take a taxi from level to level. So
Hmm.
this was the man driving to get you there.
I see. That makes sense.
There's also yeah, cameraman Dareth and Gail Gossip also from the TV show. That would make a lot of sense in just as add-on civilians to the set of just they're documenting the world. They ended up not making it through because they didn't need to be there, and then we ended up putting the sort of the effort and focus onto other characters instead.
Hmm.
But then I'm happy that Dareth made it into the docs.
Yes, yes, Dareth did, and I'm happy about that. Although I am perplexed by the use of a different face than the polybag face, which is basically ripped from the show, which is excellent. But at the same time, it's also reasonable that he has a different one because it's not a one-to-one character. It's an interpretation. So
I'm not sure if is it not the same set, same face from the Temple of Ejitsu?
It's the same face from the Temple of Jitsu, which is different from the show because there are two Dareth minifigures. The one from Temple,
Right, yeah, it is
and then
slightly different. Yep.
the polybag, which is absolutely perfect.
Hmm.
So, interconnectivity with the Temple, at the very least.
Yep. You've got Lloyd. You've got Lloyd's ninja suit. You've got Coco potentially with like laid down hair as well. Then you've got throwing around the idea of having a movie Ronin or Samurai X, or maybe Hitomi from Exoforce. Could have been an interesting character. They've got scissors because they're super dangerous. They'd just be running everywhere with those. You've got Laura, the police sergeant, Casual Kai. Then there's also Holiday Emmett would have been fun to really wanted to have him in the set as just like he's just touring Ninjago City
Mm-hmm.
while on a break between movies.
Oh my goodness.
And then of course Sweeps.
Okay, yeah, Sweeps looks a lot more finalized in this.
Yep. Now I've got to sort of figured out his build of how he should kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, I think at this point he also has got the backpack on, so he's got a clear purpose within the city, which is to keep the streets clean.
Yeah.
Going to the next slide, there was three characters that sort of were early casualties
Oh my
in
goodness.
the process of like condensing the set down into something that was realistic and sort of on price for one. You've got these two building brothers. One of them I think is a William. One of them is Ding. The idea is that they're twins that are just running around the city causing havoc. One of them's got so there's a lot of important details in these characters that unfortunately that were missed in the final set because they're really not that important, but they were important to me. So one of them is that the first guy is holding a crowbar, um, a black crowbar, because on the crowbar roof there's only space for I think 19 crowbars.
Oh
Um,
no.
so you only get 19 crowbars in the set because there should be space for 20, but if you don't perfectly align up every single crowbar, you end up with not quite enough space to fit that last crowbar. So we found that if you only had 19 crowbars, then it would fit more comfortably, and then those tiny spaces between all of them would sort of add up, and you wouldn't notice that it's like you could have sort of fit an extra one in there.
Mm-hmm.
So the hope was for him to be holding that 20th crowbar, so that you still got a sort of a whole number of crowbars in the set.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
He also had a paint roller, just so that he could be painting random pieces in the set blue in that funny color, as just a reason to have a few random parts just in that nice blue color. But he would also be putting up missing posters for his brother, because then the plan for the second brother is that he wouldn't be visible anywhere on the box. He'd be missing, but he'd be in the set. And you'd find as you're building it, when you got to the space just above the movie poster, there is a window that's sort of like an unusual sort of shape that's got sort of like these jittering lines.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's space inside that module that doesn't really do anything. There's space to put a perfect space to put a construction worker.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
So with the idea that he's built himself in from like the wrong side, he's so focused with building this wall panel that he's lost track of where he is, and then he's finished it, and then he just notices he's got this very sort of miffed expression on his face. He's like, "Oh,
So this is what
I've
life is
constructed
now.
myself into the wrong side of the building."
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, unfortunately, they were casualties when it came to sort of refining the model, because this minifigure who wouldn't be visible anywhere on front of the box wasn't really pulling his weight
Yeah.
in terms of advertising the set.
Dang. I understand that, but at the same time, it's just it's a fun
But this
story.
there's still space to fit him in there. So if you have a spare construction worker that you have no need for, you can build them into the model.
Oh my gosh, that's almost morbid, but it's okay. They're Lego people. They don't need
Oh, he's
to.
quite fine. He's got headphones on. He's got good tunes to listen to.
Okay, thank goodness.
Plenty of podcasts.
Well, may I make some recommendations? I was gonna say
And then there's
rake.
also there's a other bot here. This is cops. Um,
Cops. I was gonna say it's evil sweeps, but cops works better.
yeah, he had a lot of. I was really hoping for him to also be running around the city enforcing justice on dealing with reporting civil misconduct and chasing down troublemakers such as these two builders.
Oh my gosh, that's
But
amazing.
yeah, in the end, with the other policewoman, he didn't really need to be there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's that in his hand? His left hand. Is that?
Oh, he's got a baton.
Oh, that's a baton. Okay, yeah, I can see
Yeah,
it now.
yeah, and he's got red and blue on his backpack as well. So he's got like a
Oh
siren.
yeah. Oh my gosh. This is a great trifecta here. So we shall salute thee for existing at one point in time, but just not making the cut.
Those who are not to be.
Yeah.
Going back to the model, we've got yeah more stages sort of looping through further,
Ooh.
tearing things down, building it up again.
Mhm.
So now you've got the clothing shops sort of starting to come in. There's a lot of I think for that shop as well is exploring. Can we do like a micro temple of Ijitsu or something? Just finding little bits and pieces to put into the shop.
Mhm.
And yeah, you can sort of start to see it come together
Yeah, no,
closer
that's
to the final
really,
thing.
especially with that central tower, the spire made out of sand green. That's an awfully distinct feature, and it's good to see that really come into its own in this
Yep.
iteration.
Going to the next slide, there's just yeah even more iteration loops. You can sort of see that there's in the top floor there's actually an entire extra level that sort of was refined out. That's sort of hidden in between multiple levels. That
Mhm.
would have been a dojo for Dareth, but then found that we just really didn't need that level of space if you because at the moment the sort of sushi restaurant is starting low and stepping up while there's a building in between. If instead it's sort of thinned out a little bit, that entire floor disappears and you don't miss it at all. It becomes cleaner that way to not have it in there.
Mhm.
So this model is sort of yeah, it's just bigger than the final version. It's sort of getting close, but it's got many more details everywhere.
Mhm.
The we're also looking at things like in Lloyd's bedroom. The bed was initially blue in the film, but to make it sort of fit more with Lloyd, we suggested if it could be green instead. And the movie studio was happy to, like they were like really good for sort of back and forth suggestions. So they're like, yeah, we can swap it out to be green, so we can have it match in the set.
Excellent. That's it's good to hear that they were open to that because obviously green makes the most amount of sense as you just said, because it's Lloyd, of course. It is neat though to see all of these different color schemes. Are these buildable? Like, do these pieces exist in those colors, or is it just
Um,
green?
I think maybe yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Um, or they could be built with just the one by one version instead.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
But yeah, so yeah, this version of Lloyd's bedroom, the bits and pieces are still in different places. They'll move around to where they sort of end up.
Hmm. Yeah.
You can see in the comic shop, there's the details are sort of all different. There's a few more things. There's a bigger build up to that ray gun that was that was supposed to be sort of showing Fritz Donegan. So it's still Fritz Donegan's ray gun in the end, but there was a few more things on the build to sort of indicate, okay, it's you've got a moon and a frozen space heart, the spaceman on the top,
Hmm.
potentially a sticker of some kind on that 2x2 round tile to refer to Fritz Donegan.
Hmm.
So those details kind of came and went. There's a bit of kryptonite in there as well for some reason.
Ah,
I think
okay. That
ooze.
that makes sense because I feel that a lot of the references which weren't overtly Lego were a bit lost on me. And I remember there was that short stint of time where you had you had all of the super micro figures in all the different colors, and everyone was freaking out, going, "Oh my goodness, it's the toy Nika!" And they reference Bionicle again. When any sensible person who's looking at this from an outsider's perspective would go, "Oh yeah, it's just the ninja guys. You need to relax."
Yep. I do like how it almost lined up with multiple things. It was almost also Galador figures as well.
Yeah, no, I mean
It's pretty
it's
close.
awfully versatile actually, and I think it's fun to have that level of freedom to be able to look at that and go, yeah, this can be the ninja, which makes the most amount of sense, or it could even be the Toa Nika because the color scheme still lines up so well. So I like that.
They're all open to different forms of interpretation.
Yeah,
I think a lot of the details that ended up in the final version are sort of like that, where you can sort of make up your own stories for what they could be. I
yeah,
think the main one is that there's that blue crystal that could maybe be the realm crystal, just sitting in a comic shop if you wanted it to be.
yeah. But we all know it's just a, a crystal that's worth so
I mean,
much in Lego currency, guys. Come on, that's
it's probably just the most valuable sapphire you've ever seen. Yeah.
of course, yeah. Duh, no.
Going to the next slide. This is one of the very far out explorations
Oh my
that
goodness.
Nick and I built together. These are different pizza hover cars that could potentially fit into the city. This was sort of really from our own side of having a more fantasy element to it. Really
that
wanted to like have like a Nexonite's bike that's a dragon bike with this is an old Pepper delivering pizza. They're thinking that maybe it's been a long time since Lego Island. Maybe he's gone to a lot of different places in the Lego worlds, and he sort of ended up in Ninjago City as an old man, still delivering pizza. Like I think that's still what he really loves to do.
is is his bike using pizza for wheels?
It's a hover bike. So I think he just drops the pizzas from the side.
I have a lot. Okay, you know what? Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna accept that. I'm just
Accept it, and we move along to the next slide.
fair enough. Ooh, now okay, we're still okay. We're coming along, but we're still there's still a lot here.
There's a lot more like clutter still. This is sort of there was a big moment where we had the tower, but we felt that it was sort of in the wrong place. It was sort of a bit too front heavy. And then with the idea from Nelson, a marketing guy, he just said, "Well, what if you just put it on the back?" And it's like, yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense because now it kind of looks like it's more balanced and it looks like a building sort of rising up from inside the city.
Yeah, yeah,
So you
okay,
get like a better level of different scales going on.
yeah. It's more 3D in a sense.
Yeah. So it also makes it taller. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So that was a good change to make. And it was just draft the whole thing out and then put it back in. At this point, it sort of had built up more structure, so it was a bit more rework to sort of change the way, but it worked well with condensing the floor level. Well, so we removed the extra floor in between the shop and the sushi restaurant,
hmm,
too, which just made a lot more sense anyway. You can
yeah,
sort of see on the left of the first concept image, there's a lot of space in between the top of the roof and the little window detail that I don't really know what to do with. It's just bricks filling up space.
yeah,
So whenever we could sort of like tone that down, that was also really good because it's then you need to be just adding bricks there, but then you're not doing anything with it. So if it could be condensed, then you can spend those bricks elsewhere in the model where they have more impact.
yeah,
So you spend less time building up to get to things that you can be building the
hmm,
different things
yeah.
instead.
It's more of a condensed experience that has you doing more instead of just filling more.
With less. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So on the next slide, there's a lot of there's you can see sort of like very high detail of the shop and of the construction site. This is sort of what they look like before. We went through like a real like fine tooth comb of trying to like just refine everything. So like, can we do this the same amount? Can we do more with less? So it's very nice to have all these little details on, but then it just takes so long to build it up. Um, and you're already making so many details that you just don't need this much stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of just boiling down of all on the outside of the shop as well. There's a lot of signage, and this also would lead to so many stickers going onto everything. That we'll get to a bit later.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I do have to
It's it,
ask.
it feels refined now, but then it can be so much more, and it gets more kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to ask. I was not totally clear on what this shop was supposed to be. It was to me it was either kind of a fashion store or it was a costume shop, but I never really determined which it was.
And yes, I guess through development, it wasn't we didn't really nail down exactly what it was. Sort of details would come and go as we sort of found the need for them. So in my mind, it was always just kind of like a sort of like whatever is like hot and fashionable now kind of shop. So it's all sorts
Mm-hmm.
of yeah, could be costumes, could be like props, could be accessories, could be there's some TVs here for now. I think TVs because they had moved out of the comic shop, so maybe they could be in here.
Yeah.
That little build of TVs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so things would migrate around. So I didn't really want to nail it down to be just if it was just like just fashion, and then there weren't enough builds that would be interesting for fashion, then I wouldn't want it to be a fashion store in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can understand that.
So it kind of landed as yeah, like an exciting things shop. Although there's a very high amount of hats shops, so hats in the shop, so it essentially ended up being a hat shop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. That works.
Um, on the next slide, you can kind of see an important step in the process, which is a sense check of does this model fit on the box. Um, so it's just taking a screenshot at sort of a box art kind of angle, and then seeing where like the Lego logo would be, um, just to make sure that it fits on the box that we're thinking for it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And luckily it does, but that's always like a big consideration when we're making models to uh, just make sure that they can look good on a box. If it's a really tall model, then you'd need to either have a tall box or maybe just find a way to make the model shorter but wider so that it fits better onto a different format of a box.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd have to like have it quite zoomed out, and you wouldn't really be able to show it off well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Fascinating.
So it's always a consideration that sometimes even leads to just mirroring the entire model, because then if it's got a sort of a tall section on one side and the lowest section on the other, if you flip it around, then it fits better around the like logo and the like theme name and such.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow.
Going to the next slide.
Oh no.
You can
Oh.
just see
Ah. No.
you can see some notes.
Oh
just
no. Okay, Nick, you've given me the slides here. I have them up. I see the thumbnail for the next one. I know it's going to hurt me, but thankfully for this one, it's going to hurt my friend Meso. Um, I see you've got a myriad of sticker concepts. If you could please wait a second. What's that? Oh no. Oh my gosh. Nope. Nope. Oh no. I didn't see that.
which page are you looking at right now?
Okay, slide 50. There is a
Yep.
sketch on the left. I thought this one was gonna hurt Meso, but it hurt me equally. Holy crud. Please elaborate, Nick. Please. Please do.
These are just ideas. These are just ideas tossing around of like what
Ideas.
could be fun. Different things that could fit into different places.
Uh-huh.
I think that could be quite nice to see, right? Don't you
Mm.
imagine as a sticker?
Hmm.
Um, it's really like a two-in-one, right? To like show
Oh,
respect
yeah.
to Generation 1 and Generation 2 at the same time.
So for anyone who doesn't quite follow on the left side, there is a sketch of a mask from Bionicle. Fun fact, it is the first mask ever designed for Bionicle. It's called the Kanohi Vahi. And in addition to that is a little bit of a combination between it and its successor from the second run of Bionicle as a possible sticker. Holy crud. That's a lot to unpack. Okay, go ahead and take me through some of the other stickers on the right side of the page because there are some interesting ones. One I recognize.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
so this is sort of like starts a sketchpad first. Knowing that there would be because of the look of Ninjago City, it's got this real bustling, everything's going on kind of look, all sorts of ads everywhere. Um, a big sticker sheet was sort of a necessity from the get-go. So I was really trying to think about like, okay, how do I make these as exciting as possible, so that every time you're adding a sticker, you're also adding a bit of a story. There's something interesting going on in every bit. So one of them was just sort of really wanted to just scour the history of Lego to find all sorts of icons and logos from the past that could fit into this world.
mhm.
Um, so it starts with just like a couple of like potential ideas, and then we look through existing stickers that we had at the time to sort of make an overview of okay, these are like some ninja logos, Chima logos, city logos, Hero Factory logos, all sorts of things,
Mhm.
and then build up like we did with the little mini build table scraps, build up a palette of options that we could pick from for when it comes to finding different things to put onto different signs across the set.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is sort of it started with just a couple of stickers. Going to the next page,
Okay, this is the
it
one that I
got
feel is gonna hurt me.
well. So this is just research.
Oh,
Um,
oh, oh, gosh! Oh, it was worse than I thought. Oh, oh no!
oh my, are you doing okay there?
I don't know yet. I think my very soul has been wounded immeasurably because
I'll give you
there's
some time to process.
oh my, I didn't look through these before we started because I wanted the surprise to be genuine. Ah, oh my gosh, the Nuva symbols. And okay, well the stars. I'll give you a pass on that one. Um, okay, also the Nuva masks, and I can give a pass on that one. And Jack Stone, I can give you a pass on that one. Okay, I'm done processing. Go ahead and take us through these.
Yeah, so there's just across Lego's history, there's so much. There's so many like icons hidden in different sticker sheets and on different characters. So I did a lot of digging to try and find and familiarize myself with a lot of the history, both in just like this because there's your Octan and your classic space logo, but then there's so much. Ninjago has a lot of like amazing like different ornate symbols and details that I tried to find from the show. Um, Tried to do a lot of we have a sort of tradition that we have with trading cards, so I tried to branch out into all the different Lego themes and find trading cards from the past. So that's why you've got the Barnacle ones there and some Fabuland and Chima and Rock Raiders, all sorts of different cards.
Mm-hmm.
Bionicle is and BSO1 is an amazing website. Bionicle has so many symbols that some you wouldn't even realize. Like I don't know why they have them, but they do. Like the Moaka and Kanara have symbols, have logos. I don't know who
Yeah,
designed a logo for a bull. Um,
yeah,
Glatorian have logos, each and every one of them. There are so many symbols from Minog 2 that represent like all these different values.
yeah.
Um, all of the Hero Factory villains from the first wave had logos on the back of their boxes,
No, no. Yeah, yeah,
which
they
is
did.
neat. It is very fascinating. This is, I think, also where I started to dig into Galador as well, of like trying to these symbols, these symbols that they have. What do they mean? What does the Galador language mean? This is sort of like from two snapshots from the show in the first episode. I think they're translating. So there's only one point in the show where you see what all the alphabet means.
Hmm.
There's Exoforce has a lot of amazing icons. Lego Universe also has the different faction logos. Yeah, there's just all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So this sort of was this was part of only a fraction of like the different overviews that I made to just sort of be able to pick and choose. So if we need a circular logo for a yeah, for a sign that's a circle, then there's some ones to pick from. If we need something that's more square or could work on a longer extended sign, then there's other things to take inspiration from.
Hmm. And it makes a lot of
And
sense.
many of these didn't make it into the first set, but then Nick and I sort of consulted for the sticker sheet of the city docs for providing recommendations of what you could put into the second sticker sheet.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Second
Mark, the
sticker
graphic
sheet
designer there,
is
did an amazing job with really integrating them in well.
yeah. Oh, the second sticker sheet is absolutely spectacular. I won't I won't say that it is. I mean, obviously, it is a slightly smaller set, so there are less stickers, but it definitely for having less stickers, every single one of them is really excellent. Obviously, enough Junkbot
Yeah.
makes an appearance, and even though I've never played Junkbot, I recognize it. It's a very iconic.
Oh, you
Simple.
definitely have to give that a go.
I'm gonna have to run through
He's
all
a
sorts of Lego
star
games.
character.
It's like there are so many that I just have never played. But
So yeah, at this point, in the process, if you go into the next slide, there are about 120
oh, whoops.
potential stickers in that concept model.
There we go. Oh,
So there's
woof.
we've made an overview of like all those different spots. That's over twice as many as is in the final set. So clearly still a lot of refining had to be done. But at this point, I was sort of starting to make an overview for the graphic designers, Georgie and Laz, to be able to start working on what the graphics would look like. So we'll work in a way where we have all the different pieces up, so that like different sizes of pieces, what color it is, so that you can figure out what is the sticker that's going to be going onto it. And with so many different parts, it was a lot to keep track of,
Yeah.
especially as the model was still kind of developing.
Mhm.
So on the next slide, this is sort of an example of where it would just have like like an image of where those pieces are, and then sort of suggestions of what kind of things could go onto them,
Mhm.
and then they'd be sort of integrated to make a little bit more sense, kind of thing.
Yeah. What is this? This one off to the right. This large poster.
So that's a poster that didn't make it into the final set because there wasn't enough space in the movie poster holder. It's sort of it's a ninjas versus knights kind of concept of
Ah.
as like a potential movie.
I see.
And
Okay.
then yeah, so it's like another potential like film that you could have.
Yeah. Okay, that's
Um,
clever.
and then also this was unbeknownst to me. I didn't ask for this, but that like the graphic designers made it so that this is in in the I think in the brick separator poster, the Revenge of the Brick Separator. It's the two minifigures that are running away are Georgie and Laz.
Hmm.
So they've sort of made themselves as minifigures. Um, so these two on this Knights versus Ninja, that's myself and Chris.
Okay, yep, that's what I was thinking because the one on the right looked
Yeah.
like you, and I was thinking, could it be? I mean, listen, we need that face as like a minifigure face, so we need to get you a sig fig as quickly as possible.
Someday we'll figure it out.
I hope so. I hope so. That's fascinating. That's really cool.
Yeah. So to the next slide, you've now got
Ooh.
a physical version again of getting pretty close to the final model. Everything is pretty much there in place. All the ideas are there. It's just it's still just too there's just too still too much there. There's 120 stickers worth of things where there doesn't need to be that much. Like you can see things that are going on, but the colors are still kind of causing a lot of clutter.
Hmm.
Um, so it still needs to be sort of refined and condensed down. So there's a lot of details that now we have to like pick and choose which ones we love the most, and then just strip some of the things out so that things that are remaining can shine better, kind of thing.
Hmm. That's
I mean,
that's
that
reasonable.
was a really tough process to go through.
I can imagine. It looks like a lot of work to kind of figure out what to weed out and kind of.
There's just a lot of like you'll just have a detail and just try building it without the detail, and then sort of look at it from the whole model and see if you even notice. And so many times the answer is no, you don't notice. You don't miss it if you didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't need to be there. You can get this like it's not adding anything extra to the model. So if you trim out enough of this, then maybe you can put the bricks that you've saved and put them into making something else nicer.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the tragic losses, going to the next slide,
Oh no.
is the hover taxi,
Oh
um,
gosh.
which is a separate vehicle, like based on there's some bigger like double sided tuk tuk taxis in the film. This would have been like a more condensed flying taxi,
Hmm.
so that you can sort of get an immediate lift from different taxi signs around the city, from the lower level to the upper levels. So it was a fun little build, but then if we took it out and we took out the taxi signs, you didn't miss it at all. Um, there was also we were also trying to think about like, okay, how does this flying taxi park on the higher levels? Um,
That's a good
and
question.
it can't really. It just has to be like sitting down on the floor. So it's kind of existing in a zone that doesn't really exist.
Hmm.
So although I loved it very much, we decided to cut it out, and then you never miss it.
Dang. All right. Well, I
But
salute
sadly, that
thee.
meant also the taxi guy had to go as well.
Ugh. I salute thee, taxi. Having worked for a cab company for quite an extensive amount of time, you will not be missed. Well, okay, you'll kind of be missed. Maybe my not missing is a bit biased, but in the
It's a
grander
tough
scheme
job.
of things, you will be missed.
Going to the next slide, another thing that was trimmed out also for was a very wild, far out there concept.
Pineapple face.
This is Anna, Anna Marie Nass, was a botanist who used to work with biology a lot, but through a tragic accident ended up turning her head into a pineapple. So she's now working to find a cure to her condition so that she can return to her family. And is just working in this little lab, um, with all sorts of concoctions. Hence why there's a giant bonsai tree growing out the side.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
That's been overflowing out. Um,
Okay.
so when it came to this model, this was something I personally just really wanted to have, because it's just so silly. Um, but then the building itself felt very repetitive compared to the to Lloyd's apartment. And
Mm-hmm.
the build was very similar. You're building up walls, you're putting a lot of details inside. So both in the spirit of trying to refine things down, um, to sort of streamline everything, and also to try and avoid repetition, through the things you're building, it we decided to take out this concept, and strip this building down into a construction site, because then it gave like it made a bit more variation on that what would have otherwise been sort of a big block of yellow, and made it a different building experience where you kind of got in like a hint of what would be inside the building of Lloyd's apartment if you're constructing it, and
Mm-hmm.
also make the city just feel that bit more chaotic, where they've just sort of stopped building they haven't finished building something and they've just continued to build on top instead.
Huh.
And then also, I think I was asked very politely by Simon, my manager, that maybe the Pineapple Man doesn't make so much sense. It's not in the film or anything. People might be wondering who this character is.
Yeah, that might be true.
So yeah, she was gracefully taken out.
Well, we salute the pineapple person. You have done us a great service by telling us your story or having your story told. Hopefully, you're somewhere in a better place where your face isn't a giant fruit.
I'm sure she found peace somewhere.
There's a guy. I love the way you worded that. It's not, I'm sure she found a cure, or I'm sure she's happy now. It's, I'm sure she found peace somewhere. She might just be in a pineapple orchard living out the rest of her days. We don't know.
Who knows? Maybe she has a new pineapple family. I don't know.
Did she find a bunch of people and just give them the pineapple serum?
Who knows?
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Going to the next slide, you can sort of see like section by section we were sort of iterating on the model. So here's the middle floor that's sort of getting closer. The cash machine function has like a whole handle and elaborate mechanism for what amounts to just pushing a 1x2 tile out the back. We spent a lot of time trying to get this elaborate sort of pull function working, but ultimately simple is always better. Where just if you're just trying to push out a 1x2 tile, you can just use just a tile in the same shape, just pushing in that same motion. We didn't need the whole elaborate mechanism to just do the simple thing. So because there's a lot of bricks that are used to try and like hold this whole thing together, and then we found that we didn't need that.
Yeah.
It's just much better for being more elegant.
That makes sense.
Going to the next slide, you can see a slightly more trimmed down version of the whatever it is shop, where there's a bit more icons, a bit more different things on the walls here and there, and still many more signs on the outside. Stepping forwards, this is what the whole set at this point looks like when you take it all apart. So one of the things that we found from taking this to kids tests and showing kids what they think of this model, also with just other designers as well, just having them play around with it. If you were to take all these sections apart, you have far too many sections, and it becomes like a weird puzzle of how everything goes back together again. So although it was possible to have all these different sections, we decided that it would just be better for the toy of it to be and the usability of everything to fuse the floors together. Not entirely, but mostly, so that each chunk comes off as one big piece. So it's easier to take apart and understand how everything goes together.
That makes
without
a lot
having
of
this
sense.
giant mess of modules.
Yeah, because even when I have it disassembled every so often, like if I'm showing it to someone, and I take it apart and say, "Hey, look, see, it comes apart." Even I take a moment and go, "Okay, wait, okay, does this go on first? No, this does." And obviously, it doesn't take me very long, but that's because.
And that's with like less bits.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one of the interesting things that arose from that is that now to have these on the clothes shop level, where you now need a linkage to the elevator and a linkage to the construction site house. It meant coming up with so we needed to have these supports running through, but then just a thin level of supports wasn't enough to hold in the we at first just had some thin beams running between thin bricks, but it wasn't quite enough, so we needed to use some bigger arches, and that's where the skateboard ramp comes from. In the shop, is because there's some bigger bricks in there to connect firmly to the other module. And then in order to hide those bigger bricks in the shop as a detail, we found that this bow curving over that provided strength also kind of looked like a skateboard ramp. So we turned it into like product display for a skateboard, which is fun because it's always nice to have a skateboard in a set.
That's super clever. That's awesome.
But that also kind of worked out for us well, where we hadn't quite nailed down exactly what that shop was at that point,
Yeah.
so that a skateboard could still fit in the context of what was going on.
Yeah. That's understandable.
So going to the next slide, you can see sort of the almost final version of the first floor and the final version of the first floor, where there's really just a few tiny details that have been stripped out, like the sign has been condensed down to sort of 2 pieces, whereas it used to be 10 or 12 that didn't really add much. The taxi signs are gone. Things are cleaned up a little bit, but you don't notice it all.
Yeah.
It's that level of like polish that we're sort of now going through to just still do the same thing, not lose anything, but
clean it up.
But clean it up,
tidy it. Yeah.
There's that little tube with the plant sticking out on the left one. Not connected to any bonsai tree right now.
That's great.
Going to the next slide, you can sort of see the final iterations on the middle floor. Figuring out how to build the path. The path sort of comes together in multiple segments, so that which was the intention, so that you can build each section more self-contained, so you can see it better as you're making it, but then have it click together into something that was quite strong and provided good support. So that sort of took a lot of exploring, like how does the cash machine module fit in? How did the paths go around the building? So that sort of, we figured that out and then polished it down into the final floor.
Yeah.
That you see there. There's some in the top right. There's some early experimental patrons to the crab shop. They don't look too impressed at the moment.
Keyword, everyone, experimental. Okay, just remember, Ninjago YouTube. Skylar was not intended to be in the set. It's a test. It's a test. Okay.
Two other versions of the bank ATM machine, which have a needlessly elaborate mechanism.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow.
On the next slide, you have the last iterations of the shop, sort of where you can see that thinner wall at first that wasn't strong enough. So the thinner wall is actually becoming some kind of weird little monster guy who's got these 2 purple eyes and flipper feet. It would have been some kind of gumball machine, maybe. I don't really know what. It was just kind of a face made with the bricks that were in there for support. And they're like, this kind of looks like a face. Okay, it could be a face. But then that detail wasn't strong enough, so sadly that weird guy had to go, and it was replaced with a skateboard ramp.
Fair enough. I mean, that works. We got plenty of other machinery between the two sets, so I'll salute Gumball Machine Man for now, but that's okay.
Another casualty of development.
Yep.
So then the next slide is the top floor. You've got the tower sort of going through a couple of loops. At first, the tower, the top section, you could just spin it around, and there was space so that you could have something inside the circle spinning as well. But ultimately, I wasn't able to find something that was neat to put in the middle that you could have spinning around, because it could be like some kind of, a bit like a Borg tower, that kind of logo that was just hovering in the middle. but I
Okay.
was unable to figure out what worked in that amount of space. And it turned out it was still very nice if it was just a full clean through circle
Hmm.
hole. So it didn't need that extra level of function in it. So
Yeah.
that one sort of just skipped out.
Yeah. That works. I agree. I think it looks really nice and kind of sleek and modern without anything in the middle. I mean, given that in the picture to the left in the center, there is something kind of circular, kind of shiny, kind of almost one might say gold. I can always make a recommendation if you're not sure what to put anywhere. A Miru definitely would not feel out of place. I mean, everyone loves a Miru. Everyone agrees it's best mask. Nobody will
So
ever contest that. Hmm?
I was really hoping that there would have been space to fit like a mask of creation of some such in like a new color in the middle that could be spinning around.
Oh my gosh, BZ Power
But
spinnies manifesting in the strangest of ways.
but I wasn't able to explain why that would make sense to have a Bionicle mask just randomly in this Ninjago set.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It would have been bit unusual, and it didn't quite fit in that space either. So
Yeah,
sadly, it was not to be.
that's all right. I think the clear look it's good. I like it.
It works. And then yeah, so one of the other details I was very happy to get on top is just on you've got the antenna and you've got that sort of ball in the middle, and then you've got that cone kind of shaped thing on the side, and that's just a traffic cone. Somebody's just put a traffic cone really high up
Oh,
there.
okay.
Maybe it's some kind of final act of defiance from construction workers,
Gosh.
or who knows.
Just one final reminder that their days of terror may be over for now, but no one should feel safe while the traffic cone lays on top of the city. I know I trailed off there for a moment, but you get the
It
message.
sees all.
It's all.
Um, during this time as well for the sushi belt, for the longest time we were trying to figure out how to have the sushi belt with studs pointing up so that you could put down just regular plates
Mhm,
and connect them to the sushi belt and then disconnect them.
mhm,
Um, but we were having a lot of trouble trying to like get a belt that could move around smoothly and then the uh, hook underneath the table, so that when you pulled a connected sushi piece off the belt, it wouldn't just also pull out the track as well.
mhm,
So it needed to be able to move freely, but also be firmly attached enough inside that you could disconnect something that was attached by a stud. Um,
mhm.
and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make that work, but I wasn't able to. But then Chris figured out that if we just don't attach the sushi, if you just have it uh, sitting upside down instead, so it's just sitting loosely in there, then you can use that little bar connector so that minifigures can still hold it upside down, but it's not actually attached to the belt, so you don't need to worry about the belt being taken out. Um, so that actually then simplified everything radically. So what you have in the set is it's just a chain of Technic pieces, and then you can just drop bits into it, and it fits. But then you can take them out easily.
Mhm.
So that whole level of complication just wasn't needed in the end.
Mhm.
Um, from stepping back and taking a different look at things.
That's fascinating, and that's always a function that I end up forgetting about, but it's just such a clever design, and it works brilliantly.
And I mean it fits into the context of the world, so it's not
Yeah.
like it doesn't feel like a function that's forced in for the sake of something fun.
Mhm.
It's just a natural part of the world.
Yeah.
On the next slide you can sort of see this is getting close to the end. This is the final minifigure lineup of all the different characters. So after going through the backwards and forwards of what characters could there be, and then what characters do there need to be, these ones make a lot of sense. also making sure that you've got enough of the main characters in there as well. This is sort of where the final characters sort of characters landed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We also there was a very fun moment right near the end where we sort of looked through the sort of a big list of all the different characters, background characters that were in the film, and could just sort of just pick those are some interesting costumes. Those that looks cool. That looks cool. Would like that one for this one. This one for this one.
Mm-hmm.
And just placing in all these new sort of minifigure decorations. So you've got like the especially I love Guy's t-shirt, that pink t-shirt with the fish on it. It's really stylish.
It's very
Look.
designer.
Yeah, so he was yeah, it's they add a lot of color to the set as well, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very vibrant, and of course, there's a lot of character in all of them. We have, there's casual Lloyd and casual Jay. Sorry, not Jay. Casual Kai, and casual Kai is a really slick track suit, so that comes off really well.
He's great. My other the one of the ones that's actually sort of was unique for the set that's not in the film is the crab chef, which is that design was made by Georgie specifically for the set because of the crab kitchen. And then we wanted him to sort of complement the sushi chef that you get in the collectible minifigure series. So the idea being that if you were to get like all the different minifigures from the collectible series, they wouldn't contradict with minifigures that you were getting in this set. So that there's the sushi restaurant upstairs that if you don't have the collectible minifigures chef, you can use this guy in the crab chef in his sort of disguise form. But if you do have the sushi chef, then he makes a lot of sense to be on the top restaurant as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's clever. I like that.
But yeah, then going on to the next slide, there's the final sticker sheet as well.
Yes.
So it's now been boiled down quite a lot to a mere 56 or so stickers.
That's slight. I gotta say, I won't lie. This is definitely what brought me in. Like, obviously the set looks good without the stickers. Well, I mean, the stickers aside, I should specify. But this definitely, this one got me. This is what reeled me in for technically four
Those
specific reasons.
References, yeah.
And of course, I mean, then of course, you got some other really fantastic ones like Galdor can't go unstated, and specifically,
oh yes, yeah.
I love the Shadow of Ronin poster. Not only is it a reference to Old Ninjago, it also has a Sentai Mountain in the background, which I am a massive sucker for.
It really ties a lot of different things together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I know you've explained this before, but I figure it would be good, maybe one more for the record. In the upper left-hand corner of the sticker sheet to the left, there are words that are spelled out in the Generation 2 Bionicle language. They spell out Arso, and Arso is
Arso is an airport in Arso.
Fair enough.
Arso Airport, yeah, it's a place. It stems back to I was, as part of the fan community, I was part of Team Jigsaw, where you built a lot of things together for different like mock pages, mock-athlon contests and such. And we did the Thinking with Portals project together. It's something we used to say a lot. So it's yeah, purely self-indulgent homage to
That works for me.
my friend. Yes.
That works. See, that's cool. That's the kind of thing it's really neat. So, I like that. And of course, it's a Bionicle reference, so I'm immensely... You could have written anything in there and been thumbs up. Okay, maybe not anything, but...
I mean,
there's some guidelines, obviously, but...
That would have reminded me with that free card.
Yeah.
How would Toa Furno work for you?
Ooh, see, I'm of two minds, because on the one hand, a part of me goes, uh-oh. And then the other part of me goes, heck yeah, I would love to see what everyone would have to say to that. And it would be so much fun as just everyone... oh my gosh, no. There are too many possibilities with that. Too much
Moving
power.
right along.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the final set. You got the front and the back.
It looks so clean. It looks... everything's been streamlined. It looks characteristic. It looks very sturdy, very compact and focused while still having so much variety to it. Obviously enough, if you couldn't tell everyone, I really do enjoy this set. If Liwa Mata did not exist, this is the top of the list. So...
this set can't fly. Yeah, it's
No, it can't. Can barely even float.
hard to compete. I don't know if the whole set floats. I tried.
I'm going to let somebody else try that. I would only try that if I had taken each and every sticker off of it, and I cannot trust myself to not forget one of them. So,
I imagine some sections might float individually, like Lloyd's house, maybe. I'm not sure. You position it right.
Yeah, I could see that. That's possible.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, this was kind of it was a very long journey, and it was a dream project to work on, really. Both working with a lot of other people, and then also just the freedom that I had at the beginning as well to just explore anything. It was a lot of fun, and it was tough to sort of let go of it and get to the point where like, okay, this is the final model. But at that point, it had also been working on it so much that it was also, I knew it was a good thing as well to be able to let go of it as well.
Yeah.
And then there was just a long about a year wait to see what people would think about it. And I was very happy and pleasantly surprised that people were pretty enthused by it. I was worried that it being a bit of a modular, it's quite crazy and doesn't really blend in that nicely next to other modular buildings. What people would think of that, but people seemed quite enthusiastic and were even excited to carve out a little Ninjago section to their normal layouts. So then the other thing that I was also just super looking forward to and have been rewarded with greatly is just seeing what other people then make based on the set as well. So that's the whole reason for adding the modular pins, was to encourage people to make their own modules to sort of connect into it to expand out the city. And there's been some amazing things that people have made. Specifically recently at BrickCon this year, there was a massive Ninjago City collaboration that was made by the Brothers Brick. I wish I could have been there to see it, but it looks absolutely incredible. All sorts of stuff going on. And the fantastic rolling fortress as well, off the
I
giant.
remember that. Gosh, that was incredible.
That was amazing too.
Oh wow, yeah, no, that was sincerely one of the most impressive creations I've seen in a very long time. But yeah.
So that's just been amazing to see what the community has done with it and taken forwards. Because it really owes a lot to the community for its inspiration. So I'm glad that people have enjoyed it as well. I think.
Yeah, no, it's something that I would say even, okay, for first of all, as far as the community doing things, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I had the ninja holding small masks from Bionicle, so I've done my fair share. No, but in all seriousness, honestly, like this, I almost feel a little bad because this set it is the Lego experience for me. Like, this is the bar. Obviously enough, I have an inclination toward Bionicle. I have a favorite set overall, Liwa Mata. But this is the best building experience I've ever had. And I think that is a strong testament, obviously enough, to the journey it has taken that we've been discussing this whole time that you've presented. Like all the iterations, all the considerations, everything that went into it has been so thorough, and I think it comes out brilliantly, and that's why I just can never not recommend it. I know for some people, obviously a lot of people, bit of a tall price. Can guarantee you if
It
you're
is
a
quite
fan
the
of
investment, yeah.
it is, but I don't regret it, not at all. It's absolutely spectacular.
Thanks.
This message was not paid for by Lego, everyone. This is a genuine opinion. Okay? Okay. All right. In that case, is there anything else you'd like to comment on the design before we get into just a few questions before we wrap up?
No, yeah. Let's go to some questions.
Okay, great. In that case, I'm going to get just one YouTube question out of the way because they said they weren't going to be here for the question portion, and I'm... You're going to laugh. Cubic in the YouTube live chat asks, hey, I'm not going to be here for the question portion, so I'm going to ask now, and it can be answered later on. Other than the obvious Ninjago City and Voltron, what sets are your favorites or most proud of?
I mean, I have to be completely honest. I didn't work on Voltron.
What?
I think you're bundling me together with Nick, who was my partner in crime for a lot of things.
You're not the same person? What?
Almost we are, but actually two people.
Wow. This
But
makes a lot
I
more
think
sense. No.
I don't know. It does change, but it is, I guess it's this set is still the one I'm the most proud of. So other than that, I'm quite proud about the dragon set that's upcoming. With the little the windy one, because it was of what it means to me personally. This collaboration with myself and Nick was a great experience, and it was a fun little model to work on. That hopefully people will be able to get around some parts of the world. It'll be a little bit difficult to find in some places, but then it was a very fun experience to work on, and I think it turned out as something quite different, and also a very good parts pack too. So that's always a thing I enjoy being able to do sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, we are going to go ahead and get into a few email questions because we have a few. We're not going to be doing as many questions today simply because we've been running for quite a while, and
I have not looked at the time.
it's getting late for you. I know that. So we are going to run through things a bit quickly.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
What happened?
I looked at the time.
Are you kidding me? I don't mind.
Quite the conversation.
I'm more worried about you because it's getting late for you. So, okay. Anthony Wilson asks, hi, Eljay. Got a couple of quick questions for the show. First one is for Nick. Recently, you've been uploading some small creations on Twitter using new parts and recolors from upcoming sets. What is your favorite new part, and what's your favorite recolor from coming sets that you have worked on?
Oh, so there's a lot of fun color changes coming in the dragon set, which does sort of pertain a bit to the images I've been putting up. Probably the tan frog and tan scorpion, which, coincidentally, this dragon set, in a little bit of a way, access DLC to the Ninjago City set, because these are new colors of animals in tan that you can deep fry at home in your own crab kitchen. No longer are you limited to just crabs. You can also be deep frying frogs and scorpions.
Fantastic. That's amazing. Anthony does go on to ask, second is for you, LJ. Not sure if I've asked this before or not, but do you have any mockists planned for upcoming shows? Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I always really enjoy shows where you bring mockists on. Thanks. Yes. It's a quick answer, but absolutely. I try and keep guests as varied as I can, because that's the whole point, to have a bunch of different people with a bunch of different perspectives doing a bunch of different things with Lego. So, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, more mockists are on the way, if they agree to be on the show. So, we'll see. but yes.
Good.
All right, next email is from Niels A. Anderson, who asks, I'm sure LJ will point out the paradox that comes from someone named after Galador working on Ninjago City, but it's still kind of funny. I'm not quite sure if we're talking about the place as a whole or just that one particular set, but even from a bypasser standpoint, the work you've put into designing both / either is incredible. I'm sure if Galador would have had you as a designer, it'd skyrocket off into great heights. I do hope you've had a good week and wish you more to come. So, not much of a question, more of a statement, but there you go.
Thank you. Well, I should clarify, in a chicken and egg situation, Galador for me came after Ninjago City. Ninjago City was the thing that got me hooked on Galador.
Holy crud. That's a paradox.
I think I could explain at a later date.
Wow. All right. The last email question is from Lysander Magnus, who asks, LJ, please ask the Prince of Galador what the extent of his bionicle literature collection is, novels, comics, graphic novels, lore books, etc., and ask him if he had been a designer back during G1's run, that's a hard one, and had been told to design a Titan set, what would that Titan look like, and what role would it have filled in the story?
Oh my goodness, that is quite the question. My Bionicle bookshelf is pretty good. I've got a lot of books on it. I can't say that I've read all of the books that are on it. Growing up, I really mostly lived off the webcomics and all the serials that Greg that made. And I can't say that I've actually thought about what I would design if I was working on a Bionicle set, because I unfortunately missed the opportunity for it, because I was working on Ninjago all the time. I was having a lot of fun there. That I was very fortunate to work on a combiner model for Makuta, but not to. I would have loved to have worked on the theme itself. But I've never thought further than that for what I would have done if I was actually put in that position. I probably would have just freaked out and then eventually figured out to do something. I really don't know what I would have made.
Fair enough.
Probably something very strange though. That maybe contradicts with the canon a lot. I don't know if it would have been a good thing.
The Vahi would have made its reappearance in an unexpected way.
I mean, you thought having two evokees for silver evokees for hands was bad for the canon.
Oh no!
But if you're covered with masks of time,
tan masks of time, so you can deep fry them.
Yep.
All right. In that case, we will briefly open up the questions to the YouTube live chat, and after that, just a few, like 2 or 3. We're gonna go and wrap up. I gotta say though, of that last question, I can't even say I would have done anything differently had I been on the team, because I basically got what I wanted. I'll lay out my case. So my favorite G2 set is Liwa Master, so the first Liwa from the first wave of Generation 2. And this is for a few reasons. For starters, way back when I was doing comics on BZ Power, my character was basically Liwa with a gold mask and lime shoulders and hip joints. So, slightly modified. But his weapons were 2 axes. They were 2 lime axes. Liwa Master has 2 axes. Second.
Getting pretty close. Yep.
Second, Liwa Master is the Toa of Jungle. My character's the Toa of Mangosteen. Now that's a plant. So, by technicality, this new Liwa controls plants, which may include mangosteen. Further,
I mean, do mangosteens exist in the Bionicle universe?
asked Greg that, and I don't remember the answer because he did answer, but I don't remember what it was.
I can't confirm future plans at this point.
It was a very vague answer. I'm sure I still have it. But then Liwa Master has a golden Miru-esque Kanohi, or mask, I suppose. So we're almost there. And finally, the thing that cinches it. If you look at Liwa's name, Liwa Master of Jungle, and you take the L from Liwa and the J from Jungle, and you put them together, boom, LJ.
There it is. It was there the whole time.
Yep. So I got what I wanted.
How
I'm
could you have
good.
not seen it? Very good.
All right. So, from the YouTube live chat, Sakota asks, is the price of a set decided in the beginning of the process, or does it change while the set is created?
Both, I guess, sometimes. Sometimes it's decided from the beginning. Sometimes it changes. So when we're choosing the prices for sets, we also look at the whole theme as the theme as a whole to see, are there some low price points, are there some high price points, does everything make sense together? But then, so sometimes it's pretty determined from the beginning. Other times it comes from a model that, like, if we're building a model, it maybe actually seems to work better at like if this was bigger or doesn't need to be as big, we can sort of push the price point up or down depending on if this really makes the best model. For Ninjago City, I was in a very fortunate position that after building sort of the first concept model for it, which is maybe a $200-ish kind of size of a set, I was just given a sort of open bar tab. I was told to just make the model that you think is right, the size that it needs to be, and then we'll figure out what price that fits to. So it was only very late in the process that we figured out exactly how much the model would cost, and then sort of aimed the model a little bit to sort of land on that platform of being on budget and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was very lucky that I didn't need to make the model like dramatically smaller because we'd already decided on a lower price point or bigger, because then we had decided it would be much bigger. So sometimes it can be both ways.
Makes sense. Okay. Stephen Wirt, and I swear this wasn't an intentional ignoring of the question. It was simply I missed it. So, Stephen Wirt asks, ask about the mountain goat.
Oh, the goat. Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't talk about it because it's too painful.
Oh no.
There's a goat in a lot of the early versions of the set that's just going along the whole time, and I really, really, really wanted a goat to be in the set, but then in the end, just things didn't work out, and the goat had to go.
Oh no.
The set just didn't need the goat, even though I really wanted the goat to be there, and I wish the goat would have. I was constantly telling people that this goat is essential to all of this, but they didn't believe me. So I think the husky is the closest that I've gotten to the goat, but someday I'll get that goat.
Oh my gosh.
It'll be in a set.
To really summarize that in the words of the youth, that goat was the goatest goat that was gonna be in the goatest set, but couldn't be.
The goat had to go.
And Sakota follows up with, it had to go.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
To this day, you can still see the poor citizen. One of the minifigures, he's just wandering around, and he's still got his shepherd stick to lead the goat.
No!
But he's got no goat. He can't find it. He's just looking around the place.
I'm starting a petition. Re-release Ninjago City with goat.
It's the one polybag that's just like an addition. Is just the goat. It's just the goat by itself. Just bring him home.
It's just the goat. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I think we are gonna go ahead and end that here. Yeah, Nick, your preparedness was unbelievable. This was a phenomenal presentation, and thank you for kind of just taking us through that. Obviously enough.
Thank you so much for coming along with this journey. Yeah.
Oh man, obviously I'm a big fan of it. I will never stop recommending it, even after it is off of shelves or off of Lego Store direct buy. And yeah, it's great. Even without the Bionicle stickers, which obviously drew me in like a little minnow to an angler fish. It's
Moth to the light.
it's so good. It's absolutely fantastic. City Docs is really great as well. And yeah, so thank you once again, Nick. I really do appreciate this.
Thank you very much.
All right, and is there anywhere you would like people to follow you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Prince Galador. Other than that, I think I also frequent Flickr occasionally on with Prince Galador as well. But otherwise, you'll find me around.
Okay, perfect. I will have links to those in the description below. So, thank you everyone for tuning in to listen. Hopefully, you've had a good time and all of your inquiries have been answered. Once again, we really do appreciate you listening, and thank you to all of those who asked some questions. All right, so this has been yet another episode of the Eljay Johnsen Show. The show airs every single weekend, every Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, unless specified otherwise, over on Twitter at the Eljay Johnsen, where we have updates and guest announcements every single Tuesday. And if you have any questions over the week, make sure to head on over to my email, eljayjohnsen@gmail.com. Remember, that's JOHNSEN. Once again, thank you all so very much for listening, and we will see you all another time.
Cool. Thanks for coming.